This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Huss and Remo with you for the next couple of hours. Lots to get to as the Jets hit the road for a 3-game trip out to Hollywood, Arizona for the opening game at Murat Arena for the Arizona Coyotes in their new quote-unquote temporary home. It looks temporary, all right. We'll show you that in a minute. And then finishing it up with the final of 2 trips this season to Las Vegas to take on the Golden Knights. We've also got some news on the Bombers season award winners. We'll get to that. And some other big stories after a busy night in the National Hockey League. We'll chop that up as well. Really looking forward to our guests for today's program. The new voice of the Winnipeg Jets, Dan Robertson. Actually got a chance to catch up with Dan yesterday after the program, so we'll play that for you in a few minutes. And then a little bit later on, Murat on the Jets heading out to the road and his thoughts on the Jets through the first 6 games of the season. And we'll also head down south and get ready for this road trip and look ahead to this game against the Kings with Dennis Bernstein of the fourth period. And I think our old pal Chris Zook might jump on for a few minutes towards the end of the show as well. We'll see whether that happens. But we are packed right now. Great to have you all with us. Welcome to everyone watching on YouTube. If you have not, or if you've stumbled upon Winnipeg Sports Talk, hit that red subscribe button and join us daily for the latest in local sports featuring the Winnipeg Jets, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers first and foremost, as well as all the big stories in and around the world of sports here on the program, Monday to Fridays, 1 p.m. And for those of you watching on YouTube, you can also get us on the audio podcast and vice versa. Just search Winnipeg Sports Talk wherever you get your favorite audio podcasts, and we're there for you 5 days a week. People that are there for us 7 days a week, the great sponsors of Winnipeg Sports Talk. What WST would not be happening without the support of companies like Princess Auto, Coolbet, Not Auto Corp, as well as Little Brown Jug, Culligan Water, Wallace & Wallace, Vita Health Fresh Market, Canadian Club Whiskey, Consolidated Supply, F Apparel, Royal Sports, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, and of course our friends over at Boston Pizza. Let's get Remo in here and start this thing going. What's going on, dude? What's up? Have you voted yet?
Yeah. Public service announcement. Everyone get out there and cast your ballot. I did it this morning. It was great. Close to my house. So I didn't have to travel far. And it was easy. Filled in the circle. I was surprised it was a Sharpie, not a pencil. But I'll just do what they tell me. And yeah, I went and did it. So I know season people in chat didn't know there was an election today.
Come on, people.
I don't know if it was a joke or not.
Yeah, well, you're right. That's good. The sarcasm font is still
sometimes we don't know.
Invented in the chat. We're not sure about
There's no sarcasm font, right?
But yeah, listen, I think it's important. It's a big time for our city because, of course, Brian Bowman had been the incumbent, and the mayoral elections are always a lot more interesting, and I think in wide open when the incumbent is no longer in the mix, which is why. I would encourage everyone to, regardless, and I've avoided any, and congratulations to me, I've avoided any political takes, any slamming of some of the candidates that are in it right now. We'll leave it all up to you to make up your own decision, but one way or the other, if you can and are able, would certainly suggest exercising your right and counting yourself in for the election today. All that being said, our focus here is not on civic politics. It is on the world of sports. And the Jets actually had a practice today. One of those rare in-season practices, Remo. But I guess the big question, first and foremost, as the team got back onto the ice was the status of Rick Bowness. And as we'll hear from Scott Arniel in a few minutes, I don't think this is a surprise to anyone considering the episode that we saw on Monday night. Rick Bowness is going to miss this upcoming road trip for the Winnipeg Jets. And I think all Jet fans, anyone around the club right now, just hopes that Rick can get the rest and recovery time that he needs and hopefully get back to 100% and get back on the bench when this team gets back home after heading to California, Arizona, and Nevada.
Yeah, we wish Rick all the best. And I think Jeff said it pretty well. You think of these players having COVID and coming back quickly. You know, sometimes it does affect them longer than others, but Rick's not a player age. He's closer to 70 years old, and if you get get hit hard, might take you a while to come back. I know my parents had lingering effects for a while when they were sick earlier, so we wish Rick all the best, and he can come back when he's ready. But it seems like he's still very involved. Arniel saying he's texting him 15 times a day. He's involved in Zoom calls. Just won't be traveling on the trip, but I think his impact is definitely being felt on the team, even if he's not there in person.
Yeah, a really challenging start for this new coaching staff. I don't think there's any doubt about it. But I'll say this, the way the team played on Monday night against the St. Louis Blues, I think has probably given some confidence, a little bit more confidence level to certainly the fans of the club. And I would imagine the team inside the room that, regardless of how they're getting the message is pretty clear. The entire coaching staff has been working together since day one of training camp to implement a new style of play for the Winnipeg Jets. And I think we saw the best of that on Monday night against the St. Louis Blues. So we'll get to everything happening in the league in just a second. We'll also hear from Rick Bowness and a couple of the guys that spoke after practice today. But huge night in the National Hockey League last night, Remo, and I kind of want to start there. And it's a perfect time to get into our Why Not question of the day for our friends over at Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray and online at not.ca. We are 2 weeks into the regular season. And again, this is very, very early. Teams have terrible 2-week stretches. They've have great 2-week stretches so far. But our Why Not question of the day, we'd love to hear from you in chat. Of course, if you're watching afterwards, hit us up with your comments in on the YouTube episode. What's the biggest surprise to you in the National Hockey League through 2 weeks? There's been some surprises on the good side. I would say on the downside, the Vancouver Canucks and the way they have found new and incredible ways of blowing leads and to lose, and the incredible reaction of the fans 2 weeks into the season, certainly I think would qualify as a surprise. But let me throw out the Chicago Blackhawks to you, Michael Remis. Hawks beat Paul Maurice's Panthers last night, and the Blackhawks have now won 4 games in a row and sit at 4-2, comfortably 1 point back of the Stars and Avalanche, who have both played one more game at the top of the Central Division.
Yeah, we're here for some early overreactions to the standings. You thought Chicago would be like a team you just roll over. They got a nice positive goal differential, 20-17. Another upset last night, Arizona, putting up, 6-3 over Columbus, and there are a couple garbage time goals. But Arizona's 2-4. They're pretty rough. One team in the East who I thought was going to be pretty brutal, the Flyers, starting at 4-2, and they've got a nice positive goal differential also. I know Torts, he cracks the whip. He already benched Kevin Hayes for a game at a time. So he's got him under control there early on, 4-2. Another team has the Buffalo Sabres. They just rolled through, who was it? Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary. They lost yesterday to Seattle, but Eric Comrie has been a real bright spot for them. Definitely surprising so far.
I've loved Buffalo, and I was on them last night. I thought that we had some nice value at a plus money underdog going on this run through Western Canada, but they didn't have it last night. Eric Comrie was not able to be the wall that he had been in those previous games on the road trip, and the Sabres did lose last night to the Seattle Kraken. But great start for Ottawa. And, great start for Buffalo. Ottawa had a rough start. They had lost their first 2 games, came back with their home opener and got that win. They've rattled off 4 in a row. I'm not sure that that's entirely that surprising, because I think their expectations were a lot higher, considering they were in the mix for raising the offseason champion banner with the job that Pierre Dorion did. But a big injury in the NHL to Josh Norris, one of their top players, top 6 guy, number 1 center at times. He is out long-term and potentially could be out for the season, Reem. And that is a really devastating blow to a team that fortified their offense, added some new players in Claude Giroux and Alex DeBrincat. But man, you lose a top center. Any team can be really tough, be really impacted by that. A team like Ottawa, especially. So, listen, Shane Pinto is going to get an opportunity to show what he can do. I thought he really impressed in the preseason when we saw him play against the Winnipeg Jets. It's time for prime time for Pinto with Josh Norris, who the Sens signed long-term and invested in heavily. Lost for potentially the remainder of the regular season, just 6 games in.
Yeah, Josh Norris was very solid for them last year and really gave them a nice top 6 with Tkachuk, Stützle, Paterson, and then DeBrincat, Norris, Giroux. They won't have as Norris, as we said. It could be the whole season. We'll see. I don't know if he's having surgery or not. I think they're kind of figuring all this stuff out, but that's tough for a team, the offseason champs. That's a way, a good way to, if you go from the offseason, for it not to work in the regular season if you have too many injuries, and that's a big one for them. But Ottawa got off to a great start so far, and I still think they'll push for a playoff spot. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Still early though, but 4-2 is a nice start.
Well, and just as it pertains to the Jets heading on to the road, they'll play the Kings tomorrow night, and then the Coyotes on Friday night. Both of those teams won last night. You mentioned Arizona popping 6, led by your guy, fantasy star value pick Shane Gostisbehere, with 2 goals and an assist last night. They beat the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Kings were able to double up on the Tampa Bay Lightning, who right now are 3-4 on the season. The Kings 4-4. And I don't know about you, but when we look ahead to this road trip, I kind of wasn't mad about those teams winning last night. Sometimes it's good to have teams coming off a win, maybe a little bit more ripe for losing at home. And that's certainly what we hope the Winnipeg Jets will be able to do. So they do have a Kings team that comes off a big win. Jonathan Quick was in last night with 23 saves and a .920 save percentage. And we'll see what the Coyotes look like. I mean, I'll be honest, I have not watched 1 minute of Coyotes hockey. I've seen some highlights, obviously. But honestly, what people are talking more about the Coyotes home opener is probably less the team that they are icing than the facility that they will be icing that said team in.
Yeah, it's good news today. Anytime it's anything with the Coyotes arena, especially north of the border here in Canada, we get excited and we're like, why is this team in Arizona? They should be anywhere. So because Mullet Arena, their 5,000 seat arena is under construction, it's pretty small. They don't have the dressing room, so they're building a new visiting team dressing room, and before it's built in December, they have to go in this temporary space, and it looks like they're just taking over like a side rink. Here's the video. Shout out to PHNX on Twitter _Coyote. They tweeted out this video. Here, check this out.
Get ready for this, people. This is the temporary dressing room that they're putting together for the Winnipeg Jets to play in the National Hockey League on Friday night in Tempe, Arizona.
It looks like an unfinished basement with curtains. That's what it looks like to me. And I don't know when it's done. Maybe they'll put some carpet down and put in some stalls. But I can't believe this is an NHL dressing room here. And they had quotes in this video from the president of the Coyotes, Gutierrez, and he said, "Look, they communicated with everyone. They're doing this for 4 games. Jets happen to be the first game." Nothing to see here. Everyone knew this was going to happen. Although we've seen reports, I think Kyprios reported that players unhappy with the situation there, but apparently it had been communicated. And hopefully their thing is ready in December, because I don't think, when you set a deadline for construction, usually it's always on time.
Yeah,
There's never
exactly,
been a construction delay with anything ever, so it'll be ready for sure.
Yeah, and for those of you that are listening on the podcast, essentially it's like they've curtained off half of an indoor rink and throwing up black curtains around it, and just put the boards down. And that is the beginning of the Jets dressing room. I'm sure we'll get some better shots from the Jets social media team when the team gets to Arizona on Friday
for that historic game.
Yeah, the historic first game at Mullet Arena. And who a better visitor than the Winnipeg Jets? Of course, with all the background and history between the two franchises. MC Stormy, the Jets are going to have to sit on the floor. Yeah. So anyways, if you're a podcast listener, this is a good reason to get on over to the YouTube channel to check out exactly what we're showing. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. All right, we're going to hear from Jets acting head coach Scott Arniel in just a minute. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to bring on Dan Robertson, who is the new play-by-play voice of the Winnipeg Jets. Really looking forward to having Dan with us on it. And again, we're going to get to the Bombers as well. But let's just quickly get to post-practice from today. As I said, right off the bat, no Rick Bowness. No Nikolai Ehlers as well. Now, Ehlers will be on the road trip with his teammates, but he won't be playing. What do you think that conversation went like, Reem? So, Nick, you know what? We want to be cautious with this injury. We're going to sit you out for the next 3 games. You probably went something, but I can still come, right?
Yeah,
like, I can still come to LA and Phoenix and Vegas. I don't have to stay back and do training or do rehab or anything. Please say yes. Please say yes.
I'm laughing so hard. Here's the picture they tweet of him. He's fired up. Not going to play in the games. He might skate with the team. That's what they said. But they're going to, LA, Phoenix, Vegas. He's not saying no. I looked at the temperature. It's not freezing here yet, but it's 2 degrees Celsius. I'm assuming much nicer in all those cities. So he's looking forward to getting out of here. How could you say no, Huss, to travel on the Jets plane to all those cities? He's like, I'm still coming though on the trip, right?
Yeah, I got to be there to support my teammates for sure.
Yeah, they need they need me there. Come on, emotional
By
support.
the way, though, I mean, we kind of joke about the weather, and yeah, it's only 1 degree right now. But I and usually at this time of year, I don't pay much attention to the weather because you just know it's going to suck. Not the case. Tomorrow, sunny and 9. Friday for the Bomber game, sunny and 12. And it's sunny and 12 right through the weekend, actually. Monday for Halloween is going to be 13, a mix of sun and cloud. So we're going to get another great next few days. Might be a good time to, check out that Little Brown Jug patio on the weekend. A few extra days of fall to get to it. So Nick will be missing some beautiful Winnipeg weather, but he'll, of course, be with his team. And I'm sure the team loves having him on the board and just want to get him back in the lineup as soon as possible. I think right now, optimistically, the most likely return for Nikolai Ehlers is going to be next Thursday when the Jets host the Montreal Canadiens. And, they will have a little bit of time off. I mean, this 3-game road trip it's 3 quick ones, 3 and 4. Kings tomorrow night, Coyotes Friday night, Golden Knights on Sunday night, and then 3 days off. So imagine you'll have a day off on Monday and then a couple days of practice to get ready for 3 games at home, Canadiens, Blackhawks, and Stars, before a quick trip out west for the Flames and Kraken, and then 3 more at home with the Ducks, Penguins, and Hurricanes coming in. And, Remo, I think we'd express this a few times during previous conversations on Winnipeg Sports Talk about the importance of just getting through this first month of the season and these first few games, first 10 games of the year. And I'll tell you what, that win on Monday night was, I think, crucial. I mean, not only to get all the things we talked about yesterday, showing that they can play that system for 60 minutes, being rewarded for it. That was all great. But as far as the division goes and the start of the season, you didn't want to wake up after 10 games and be, 3-5-2, or, you wanted to at least be able to keep your head above water. And I think they put themselves in a position where they can absolutely do that. Again, this is not an easy trip. You've got 2 playoff teams and 1 very bad team, but you'll be playing on the second end of back-to-backs with travel in the middle. So, I mean, it is certainly no slam dunks. But tell you what, if the Jets can get 4 of 6 points, or even 3 of 6 points, but I think once you get that single, you really do want to make it 2. And then come back and start it off with a nice win over the Montreal Canadiens. I think that would probably be better than most people thought so far. But I think they got to get to 10 points minimum by the end of that Montreal game, and getting that win on the road, heading out on the road before the LA and Arizona games, I thought was massive. And as I said, they've got a lot of home games in November. Presumably Rick Bowness hopefully will be back on the bench, a little bit more of a normal schedule as opposed to what they've had so far. And, you just hope that they can build off that big win on Monday night that hopefully set the tone for the week and the upcoming road trip.
Yeah, I agree with you, Hess. You don't want to fall too far behind like Vancouver, who had similar playoff odds to the Jets coming into the year, and they started off 0-5, and you can't dig out of that hole. They're almost the rate you have to play for the rest of the year after that is tough. So being 3-3, they're still in the hunt. And I was looking at the schedule. I know we kind of make fun of schedule comments. However, they don't really have an extended period at home here for the beginning. You have the home opener, then you go on the road, then you come home for 2, and then you go on the road again. Well, now in November, you get full 2 weeks basically at home. You come home after the Vegas game, November or the 31st, and you don't go out again until the 12th. So nice stretch here with 3 games against Montreal, Chicago, who are not very good. Dallas is the tough divisional game, and if you keep winning these divisional games, and as you said, if you grab 4 to 6, they'll be in a really good position here. So keep building on that great performance they had on Monday. And if you can get 4 to 6, you'll be in a really nice spot heading into November, where you do have a lot of games. And could we forget that November 17 game where they honor Teemu Selanne and Teppo Numminen?
Well, and you know what? Nice little segue into a bit of info we just got from Jets PR. That there's going to be a Zoom conference with Teppo Numminen on Friday. So hopefully we'll have a little bit of the former Jet great for you on Friday's show before he and Teemu Selanne go into the Jets Hall of Fame later on in November. All right, let's get to the clips because Scott Arniel did speak after the practice today. And Remo, start off with number 3 because I think everyone's first question and first concern, obviously, is on the health and the status of Rick Bowness. He will not be coming on the Winnipeg Jets road trip, but Scott Arniel did talk about Bowness' status right now and how he's doing.
Yeah, no, he won't be coming. He had a setback, obviously. Just probably jumped that a little bit too early. But no, he was on a Zoom call with us today when we showed the team some clips this morning, and I get my 10 to 15 texts a day, so which is great, which is good because he's staying in it and he's watching it. But at the end of the day, he's with us in the spirit here, and he'll just we're all putting the game plan together, and he's got to obviously still has a big say in it.
All right, there's Scott Arniel on Rick Bowness. So great to hear that he's still very much active and involved. But I think they're definitely doing the right thing, giving Bowness a little bit more chance to rest, recover, and hopefully come back with the incredible level of energy that he brought to training camp in the preseason before falling ill just before the Winnipeg Jets home opener. Scott Arniel also talked about trying to, get on a bit of a roll here and win 2 in a row after that win in very impressive fashion Monday night at home before heading out on the road trip.
We talked about it. We've kind of won one, lost one, a little bit of a trend happening, and we need to have that same kind of effort, that same kind of look. It came from 4 lines, it came from the 6th defense, and then obviously our goaltending. So playing on the road, you have to play that way, and so we need to build off of this game and continue to move forward with it.
All right, so 3-4, LA, Arizona, a day off on Saturday night in Vegas. And then a Sunday night game against the Golden Knights before coming back home with a few days off before beginning that homestand. Arniel just talked a little bit more about the upcoming road trip with 3 games and 4 nights. Yeah,
you always have to have good starts, especially on the road in the other teams in their building. I'm sure they're going to be looking to get after us right away, and but it's a mindset that you get yourself prepared, and know what you need to do, in your first shift, in your first, your first period, that we set the standards of how we want to play and continue that right through the game.
All right, Scott Arniel, acting head coach of the Winnipeg Jets. Now, we mentioned Nikolai Ehlers is going to be hanging with the team. He'll travel with the team. Unfortunately, he won't be playing for the team on this road trip. But Logan Stanley, after a really strong game against St. Louis, was not on the ice today, and Dylan Samberg was back out and had ditched the non-contact jersey. Here's a little update from Arnie on Logan Stanley and Nikolai Ehlers.
What about Logan Stanley? Is he going to be on the trip?
Yeah, he'll be there. He got hit with that shot the other night and real sore. So we'll just kind of wait and see how he feels again tomorrow.
Is Nick on the trip as well?
Nick's coming. He's progressing. He won't be playing, but he's coming. He may be skating with us, getting on the ice, maybe get working out with the extras.
So the one thing I can take from what Arnie just said about him not playing is that when they gave us that 7 to 10 day number for Ehlers, it wasn't retroactive to when he was actually hurt. It was 7 to 10 days from when they said that, because of course it's now going to be probably more than that, missing this entire week of games and then hopefully being back healthy for when the Montreal Canadiens come to town a week from tomorrow. We spent a lot of time talking about Sam Gagner yesterday and the value that he has provided the Winnipeg Jets on that very inexpensive one-year contract, has scored in all 3 Jet wins so far. The fans are enjoying Mr. Brightside when it's played at the Canada Life Center, and I'm sure the coach has as well. He was asked about Sam Gagner's contributions so far this season.
Yeah, he's a good veteran. He's been around a long time, knows how to play in different situations. It's kind of funny. He was a penalty killer in Detroit the last couple of years. We were using him on the power play. When you have that versatility, a veteran guy, it helps so much. And he's been really good with our young players and kind of passing on information. I know he talks to Perfetti lots, and now with Barron, talking to him, and it just when you have those guys, they're an extension of the coaching staff.
All right, very interesting line there. An extension of the coaching staff, and we knew that Sam Gagner would be a great addition to the team, a great addition to the locker room. He has certainly been a nice add to the roster. And been helping out the coach and, dealing with some of the younger players getting their feet wet in the National Hockey League. And who better to do that than a guy that's approaching 1,000-game milestone a little later on this season. Scott Arniel just mentioned Morgan Barron, who scored his first of the season in the win over St. Louis, had a couple of good looks, had been playing an important role on that third line. And he talked a little bit more about the confidence the team has in Morgan Barron.
Yeah, he had a different circumstance. He had to play golf with Bones down in Halifax in the summertime, so they got to go head-to-head right away. But he was told then that he was going to start on that line with Lau and Apple. I know it's changed a little bit with the Ehlers being out, but he was going to start in that role, and that's a big role. He was going to see a lot of the team's opposition's best players, and it's a 2-role responsibility. We need you to defend, and then we also need you to contribute offensively. And he's grasped it, and he's also, he's been learning on the fly. We're showing him stuff, and he's still a young player. Hasn't been in this league very long, but he has a lot of the qualities. Big, he can skate, he plays heavy, still has a skill set that can play and finish like he did the other night.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel with some of his post-practice comments. As far as the lines go, pretty much as we saw against St. Louis, Connor Scheifele, Appleton, Perfetti, Dubois, Wheeler, Sam Gagner in an Appleton spot with Lowry and Barron on that third line, and Axel along with Gus Bus and Manalainen and Toninato rotating in and out of the on the right wing of that fourth line. Morrissey, Pionk, Dylan Schmidt, no Logan Stanley today. Dylan Samberg was back in alongside Dylan DeMello. Of course, Samberg had a strong game, quiet game against the Colorado Avalanche, but was hurt in that game. It hasn't been back in the lineup. We'll see whether he's back in against the Los Angeles Kings or Logan Stanley returns to the lineup after his definitely strongest game of the season with Dylan DeMello against the St. Louis Blues. And I would think, we haven't been told, I would imagine Connor Hellebuyck goes tomorrow night against LA. You would think Big Save Dave hopefully can go in and have a better start to the game than his first start went against the Golden Knights against Arizona on Friday night, and then Hellebuyck getting a crack at the Golden Knights on Sunday night. All right, we're going to talk about this more, the first 6 games, we'll look ahead to the road trip with our good friend Murat of The Athletic. Coming up in just a second, the new voice of the Winnipeg Jets, Dan Robertson. Before we do that, got to give a shout out to our friends over at Consolidated Supply. Check them out online. They got a great new website. They've just relaunched at cte.ca. They are the irrigation specialists. Your first choice for irrigation, from lawn and garden to golf. Consolidated Supply brings you the highest quality products and exceptional customer service. And not just irrigation, but also artificial turf. If maybe you're thinking about working on something on your property where you don't want to cut it, it's shaded, doesn't grow properly, or you want to build that dream putting green in your backyard. Also, speaking of golf, obviously your first choice for golf cars. They are the club car dealer in Manitoba, working with golf courses around the province, but also with individuals and companies, 2-seater, 4-seaters, 6-seaters. Some great options for industrial vehicles to help you on large work sites. And listen, if you want to get one tricked out for you to run around your campsite or your cottage area in the summer, Consolidated Supply has it. Don't forget, check out their incredible selection of hot tubs, outdoor kitchens, and more. It's all there at Consolidated Supply, cte.ca, or pop down and see Spicy and the gang at 1395 Niagara Road East. Vita Health Fresh Market has great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries, and Winnipeg's largest assortment of local products, too. With back to school here, you can stop by any Vita Health store for great school-friendly snacks and lunch items, not to mention great immunity products like vitamin C and D. And for those of you on the run looking for a delicious and healthy lunch, stop by any Vita Health Fresh Market and hit that grab-and-go deli for great Vita Market salads, soups, sandwiches, and more. Falafel salad, especially tasty. And hey, if you can't make it down to the stores, you can visit their new fully shoppable website at myvita.ca to buy online, schedule a delivery, or in-store pickup. Vita Health Fresh Market, empowering people to lead healthy lives. 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge, and online at myvita.ca. And hey, with the winter coming here, Wallace & Wallace wants to remind you, don't forget your garage door as you're working through your home winterization list. Summer rain, dirt, and dust can stain your door, so a quick pressure wash or hose down with a mild soap or detergent will not only brighten up your home's curb appeal, but also protect the life of your door. And hey, if it isn't closing properly, be sure to check that your photo eye isn't blocked, dirty, or misaligned. And if it's noisy, lube your rollers and hinges with a high-quality lithium or silicone-based grease. Don't use WD-40, as it can cause problems as temperature drops. Hey, and you can also call Wallace & Wallace and take advantage of their winter maintenance program. It's their version of a medical checkup for your door. Their technicians will poke and prod their way through a 21-point checklist, making sure your door is ready for the winter ahead. To book your service call, go to wallacedoors.com or give them a call at 452-2700. All right, we've been looking forward to having Dan Robertson on the show. Of course, he's been very busy getting settled here in Winnipeg, just in time to hit the road again. But after yesterday's program, we had a chance to sit down with Dan, have a great chat about his road to Winnipeg, thoughts on the team early on. And here it is, the new play-by-play voice of the Winnipeg Jets with TSN, Dan Robertson on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Dan, welcome to Winnipeg and welcome to the program, and thanks for doing this.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
How's the first few weeks been? It's been quite a whirlwind for you as well. I can imagine. I mean, uprooting, moving to a new city right at the start of the season. If you had a chance to take a breath yet, or what?
Not really. As we speak, I just got my furniture. It just arrived from Montreal yesterday, and so I just finished putting my apartment together today. So it's been that sort of thing. I've been, living in a hotel for a while, and was lucky to be able to do that. But yeah, it's been a lot of that sort of stuff where you're trying to get your ducks in a row. And not that hockey's secondary, but once I get settled, I'll feel a lot more comfortable. But it's been really exciting. I mean, when I found out about the job, one of the things that really attracted me was the fact that it's such a great hockey market, and that's not kissing up to Winnipeggers. I mean, I've been doing NHL games for 8 years and always loved coming. I guess maybe it was the games that I would see and calling Canadians games were sort of similar atmosphere to when the Leafs were here last weekend, right? So it's kind of half and half, but it's always fun to call games here.
No doubt about it. We've got a sort of a running joke on the show, Dan, for the last few months that, with Dennis leaving and then Sarah announcing that she was moving over to work for the hockey club, that the folks at TSN television had a Brad Treleving-like offseason, somehow managing to replace Dennis and Sarah with yourself and John Liu. And obviously it's a high compliment because we know what an incredible job Brad did, given what he was served up in Calgary in this offseason and what the Flames look like right now. But listen, tell us, how did it come about? I mean, we'll get into your background of Montreal, but was this on the radar for a while? I mean, how did you find out that there was an opening, and how did it end up coming about that you're our new guy?
Well, about a week before the season ended, I had somebody who's from Winnipeg and in the business say, listen, I heard Dennis is going to retire, at least partially retire from the Jets broadcasts. And he said, you'd be good for that market. I said, well, I'm going to try. So I had done the last, 6 years maybe, fill-in work on TSN TV in Montreal. When Brian Mudryk would go to do curling, I would slip in there. And so my boss there was the person doing the hiring here. So I let him know right away I was interested. And he said, I'll get back to you in July. And he did. And it kind of lingered from there a little bit and went on a while. And, when I first talked with him, I had a pretty good feeling because he said, I have a good idea where there'd be a good place for you to live, which is actually where I am this very second. So he gave me a couple of other hints that I would have a pretty good crack at it. And then it just kind of evolved into that. So still, it was a little bit late in the game, and I had to hustle and get out of my lease in Montreal and all those fun personal things that nobody cares about. But it's been exciting. It was actually basically the same way I was when I was hired to do the Canadiens radio. It was kind of late in the game too. It's just the way things go sometimes. It's no big deal, but it's a lot going on at once. But people have made me feel pretty comfortable, and everybody at TSN and everybody I run into. So it's been good, and as they say, once I get settled, I'll feel a lot better and be better at the mic too.
Well, I can tell you, throughout the offseason, which was a very busy offseason for us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, first of all, it was the coach, and then it was what was happening with the players. But the one thing that was a constant that we would get every single day, Remis, who's the new play-by-play voice? And it took a little while, but I think people have been very, very happy with your decision to move out here and taking over the gig. Did you know Dennis at all before? And then tell us about what Dennis may have imparted in you going in and following him after being such a big part of this community and this hockey team for the first 11 years.
I knew him a little bit. I knew him as, I guess, all hockey fans knew him or know him. He's been around a long time, right? Even before he had done the Jets games, I had listened to him do the Leafs games and just knew the name. And then one thing I always remembered about Dennis, it's funny, impressions people can make on you. It was one of my first trips to Winnipeg, and I'm trying to remember, is it the Fairmont Hotel maybe that we were staying in, and you can walk underground to get to the arena. So we were going to leave. I think it was morning skate, and Dennis came up to me and said, okay, this is how you get back. And he kind of drew me a map, like, this is how you get back to the hotel. He didn't really know me, and I just thought it was really kind of him. And I actually, for once, followed instructions the right way. So, but I got back. But no, when he kind of knew that it was going to be me, he reached out and he was pleased for me. I think not to sound full of myself, but he was pleased it was me, I think. Maybe because I'm a little older, maybe because I'm experienced. I'm not sure why. But we all went out for dinner before he moved to BC, and that was great. And, I've asked him some other little things about just stuff about the city and different contacts and that sort of thing. And he's been quick to really help me and quick to, wish me luck and a couple of my first broadcasts and that sort of thing. So, I've always thought I'm a pretty good judge of character. I'd like to think I am. And as soon as I kind of met him, I had a pretty good feeling about him. And then you hear what a good guy he is. And so that's pretty clear. And we know what a broadcaster he is.
No, it's funny. I mean, people have said the same things about you, and I think that is high praise. Dan, listen, I want to talk to you about the Jets and this upcoming road trip, but, considering that you are a new face and new voice to many people, by the way, folks, check out Sean Fitzgerald's piece in The Athletic about Dan's journey to Winnipeg. It is a great, great read. But fill us in a little bit of the 411 on Dan Robertson, your Acadian roots, Nova Scotia, I know, and how you ended up getting in. It was a long, circuitous route to an NHL play-by-play booth.
It was. And yeah, that article that you alluded to, Sean Fitzgerald wrote it in The Athletic, and I read it, and I was really moved. He talked a lot about my father in it and my family, so it was something. And, what I'm reading it and thinking, and obviously I told him this stuff. I didn't get my first NHL job till I was 44. And when I see it in print, I think, no, that's not old, but it's not particularly young either. So I think I got into the business when I was 30. Started volunteering at a place, Eastlink TV in Nova Scotia. It's a cable provider. It's a cable company. And I thought we built a pretty good sports coverage channel with Quebec League hockey and university hockey. And I called football and basketball. Those were the main ones. And I hosted. And then I got into play-by-play after that. And then in 2014, and I had applied for you should see the stack of go-away letters I have from various NHL teams from over the years. It's kind of funny. So I applied for everything that I saw. And when in 2014, there was a new broadcast deal between the NHL and broadcasters. And someone had asked me if I wanted to apply for the regional TV games for the Montreal Canadiens. A man named Joel Darling kind of pushed for that. Joel's been good to me over the years. And then I didn't get it. John Bartlett got it. But I knew that John Bartlett had been the radio voice of the Canadiens. So right away I emailed the general manager at 690, and he eventually had me for a tryout and hired me. So eight years beginning in 2014 with the Canadiens on radio, and a bit on TV, and now I'm here.
Well, and you're going from one hockey mad market to another one, and we talk a lot about this, for instance, when the Leafs come or the Habs come, but I mean, there is something about being in a Canadian market, and Montreal, of course, is a bigger city than Winnipeg, albeit hockey is a religion. But while the numbers might not be the same, I'm sure you've seen the passion in this market for this hockey club, even in the short time you've been here so far.
No, I have, and I know this isn't exactly what you're talking about, but as far as numbers go, we were talking at TSN, and I've learned the last little while about the reach that the games have, in northwestern Ontario, and really it's quite wide, and it reaches a lot of people. So I think that's pretty great. And I mean, it's just getting a sense of, through the team's first 6 games, they've all had tough opponents. So they're 3-3. I think they're doing pretty well, but they're 2-3. We go to Dallas and they get beat. It's like, this team's terrible. You get some of that online, which I guess you're going to get anyway. And then they have a nice win against St. Louis, and it's 180 degrees the other way. So that's part of the fun. It blew me. I mean, before I went to Montreal, I thought I knew what a passionate hockey market was about and what it was like in Montreal. Then I got there, and it blew me away how, it's crazy, right? It's just insane. And it's fun, but at some points, like last year was the worst season they ever had, and you're kind of in the middle of it, and it almost drags you down. But on the flip side, when it's good, it's great. And I get that sense here too. And I would think in 8 years, I probably called 6 games here. I mean, we missed a couple of years because of COVID, and obviously you just get here once a year, but I've said this, I get a sense of what the Jets mean to Winnipeg and beyond, like the whole community. I hope I'm right. I think I'm going to be proven right. And I said earlier, I've always applied for TV jobs when they come available. I actually tried for a job with the Devils this year, and I didn't get it. That's fine. But I always thought wherever I go, if I go somewhere else, I want hockey to matter there. And it certainly does here, as you guys know better than I do.
Dan Robertson is the new play-by-play voice of the Winnipeg Jets on TSN, joining us now on Winnipeg Sports Talk for the first time. Well, as far as you mentioned, the first 6 games, and yes, there has been a lot of ups and downs so far. And listen, if you're looking for calm, measured, and reasoned takes, Dan, Canadian hockey markets might not be the best place to start looking for it. That being said, though, I think we all looked at the schedule, even, with the potential that this team has, and even the most optimistic Jet fan would look going, it's a bit of a meat grinder through the first 10 games. At 3-3 and coming off a win the way they played against St. Louis, which, as Scott Arniel said afterwards, really is pretty darn close to the blueprint. It certainly hasn't been perfect, but for a team that had a lot to come back from after a very disappointing season, I think overall there is some reason to be certainly fired up for this upcoming road trip where the tests continue for the Jets.
No, I agree, and I'm trying to get caught up on what happened last year. I mean, I know what happened record-wise, and anecdotally, I'm learning.
You don't want to, Dad. You don't want to. You're coming in perfect. Just
start from scratch.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. But it's been interesting, and I feel for Rick Bowness. Right, here's a guy who comes here, and it's driving him nuts. I mean, he's made the point to say I've missed very few games over the year, and it's true. And actually, Rick's a Nova Scotian too, who I know a little wee bit. I played in a golf tournament of his a while back, but he's a good guy, and I look forward to getting to know him. But it's the things that they preach throughout training camp and playing fast, and that doesn't necessarily mean just skating fast. It's moving the puck north as soon as you get it, not so many side-to-side passes, pressure in all three zones, and that sort of thing. I mean, we saw, you're right, in the Blues game a couple of nights ago, that was almost played to perfection. I don't know if that was a better game than the one they had in Colorado, considering they were playing the Stanley Cup champs, and the Avalanche had all the momentum midway through the game. I was really impressed by the way Winnipeg just stuck to their game and came back. But, I look at the game against the Blues, and one thing that Bowness has said, and I get it, that we don't want to rely too much on Connor Hellebuck. But it's awfully nice to know you have a good Connor Hellebuck back there. And I know the numbers were a little inflated last year, and again, I don't know if that was Connor or just the team defensively. Probably a bit of both, as usually is the case. But, man, he's looked good when he's had to. That game against the Blues, they had some chances early, and without him being top-notch, who knows where it goes. But in front of him, I thought they were very strong. So I don't know if they can play that way 82 games. I know they can't, but I don't know how often they can. But if they do, they're going to be a handful, I think.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And, you want to see some positive reinforcement for the work that the team and the coaching staff has been doing. And I think they certainly got it last night. And make no mistake about it, that tape is going to be shown to the team over and over again when maybe they're in a bit of a funk, is going, guys, you've done it before. That's what you want to see done. And certainly was a really fun night in the rink last night. And now off for 3 and 4. And Dan, you're going to get to, a little Hollywood, and then the first game in the Mullet Arena and the Winnipeg Jets. Do we know about the press box there, or what your broadcast situation is going to be?
I don't know anything about it, to be honest with you. I just know roughly what the capacity is. I'm looking at it as a positive. I mean, we have to be close to the ice surface.
Oh, right? Yeah, you'll have a great view, I'm sure.
Who knows? I mean, and that's one of the things I like best about here in Winnipeg is you're really on top of things, and I love the accent or the vantage point. So, I mean, it's hard not to get too off topic here, but it's hard to believe that that's going to be an NHL rink for the foreseeable future. So, I don't know if it's an advantage to the Coyotes or not. I don't think it really matters, but it's going to be cool to be right on top of things. And then we'll see. I mean, it's back-to-back, right? LA and Arizona, and then another trip to Vegas. We saw that they were pretty strong last week. So 2 games in 10 days at Vegas, and then Jets will get to come home. But it's awfully nice for them. It's such a long season. You don't want to blow anything out of proportion. But I think the mindset going on the road and winning that game against St. Louis and being 500 allows you to, get away from at least a little bit of pressure as they get set for the Kings.
Dan, I know you've been around the team quite a bit. Just in conversations, being around, any players sort of, catch your eye? Great conversations. Anybody stand out so far in your interactions with the guys you're calling?
Yeah, I'm just trying to slowly introduce myself to everybody. And Nate Schmidt is a great guy. And listen, Kevin Sawyer told me before I even got here, and Kevin's been wonderful. Who the great guys are. And I had a good chat with Neil Pionk as well when I started. And, of course, I went to Morgan Barron because he's from Halifax, and I was just kind of looking for that maritime tie.
Big goal last night?
Yeah, and he's an intriguing player. I don't think he'll ever be a high points guy, but he's a big boy, and he's got some energy. So I think he looks like a pretty good third-line player. I had a chat with Mark Scheifele just briefly the other night too, but that's kind of the I'm slowly kind of trying to integrate myself that way. It was neat when I talked to Morgan. His brother Justin, I called his first NHL goal in Montreal last year. So, I kind of leaned into it a little bit because he's an Nova Scotian too. And I told Morgan that. He goes, "Oh yeah, my mother, when you got the job, my mother sent me the clip of that goal call." So I thought, "Oh, that's kind of nice." So that's the thing. I think maybe to my disadvantage sometimes. I'm not the kind of guy who, how do I say this? I could be a little pushier. I like to give guys their space, but I'll get there and I'll get to know guys, and I'm not looking for any deep dark secrets. But it's nice just to be able to get into the room and to be able to add something to the broadcast that you can't find online. I always say anybody can go anywhere and find out that player X has 3 goals and 4 assists, but there's a select few who can go in and actually have the conversation and be able to relay that to the viewers and the listeners. So I like that part of it.
Well, I'll tell you what, put Connor Hellebuck at the top of your list as well, because as great of a goalie is, I think he's an even better interview and definitely one of the most interesting dudes in that locker room right now. And he's playing very well. Dan, this has been so much fun. Once again, welcome to Winnipeg. Hopefully we can do this again later on during the season. Keep Paulie Edmonds, our buddy, and the rest of those guys in check on the road out to Vegas and California on the weekend. And I guess when you come back from the road, you'll actually have a few days to really get settled here in your new home of Winnipeg, being the play-by-play voice of the Jets.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't have to go outside to go to work, so I didn't care how much rent costs. That makes me feel pretty good. And it'll be the first game week I'm back will be against the Canadians, so that'll be kind of a neat experience for me too.
Well, you're looking forward to that one, and of course, looking forward to your call over the course of this next 3-game road trip. Dan, much appreciated. Everyone in the chat welcomes you as well, and here's to a great season and a long time covering the Jets and being our voice at the games here on TSN. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime.
All right, great stuff with Dan Robertson. And as we mentioned in the interview, folks, if you have not read Sean Fitzgerald's piece on Dan's long, circuitous route to Winnipeg to be the new play-by-play voice of the Winnipeg Jets, check it out at The Athletic. Speaking of The Athletic, our guy Murat coming up right away with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Why not question of the day? Open in the comments of today's YouTube broadcast. Hit us up with the biggest surprise from your perspective on the first 2 weeks of the National Hockey League season. And of course, our friends over at Not Auto Corp are busy right now. Had that big Tesla event on the weekend. Still plenty of electric vehicles for you to check out. And they still do have the Tesla Experience program, which includes overnight or weekend-long Tesla experiences and your opportunity to learn everything about electric vehicles and technology from the Tesla experts at Not. And hey, with the snow just around the corner, they do have winter tire specials and MPI payment plans for winter tires. Why not get safe winter tires now and pay later? And of course, warranty-approved servicing and maintenance repair on all makes. And there's much more than just the Teslas and the incredible selection of electric vehicles. If you're looking to improve your ride before you do anything, head on down to Not. Why not get into the car of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Not team? Not Auto Corp, Waverly and McGillivray, and online at not.ca. The gang at Royal is ready for the upcoming couple of months heading into the holiday season. Of course, before we get to December, we got November, and that means World Cup in Qatar. Got some big news on that coming up in the next few days here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. But hey, if you don't have your Canada gear yet, Royal Sports has the biggest selection of Team Canada merchandise around, including player jerseys, team kits, and more. Pop on down, get ready for the World Cup. And while you're there, check out thousands of pieces of Jets merchandise, the latest Bomber gear, as well as we get ready for another trip to the Grey Cup, fingers crossed, West Final, November 13th. And of course, Royal is also the hockey superstore for 40 years, with hockey players working in the shop to help you get fitted with the best possible equipment to help you raise your game. Royal Sports, the #1 sports store around 750 Pembina Highway. And make sure you're following them on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Pembina for their latest merchandise drops and sale information. And the guys over at F Apparel are busy right now as well. Got a couple great sales on right now. You know that they're the leaders in custom suits for men. fitting starting at $400 for a suit. Remo and I both got fitted up. You pop in there, decide on the style that you want, the materials, colors. Get fitted up, and a couple weeks later, you've got a great new suit to wear. And hey, for those of you that need a full wardrobe refresh or are working in a suit on most days, great sale right now. Buy one suit, get one for 30% off. And for you guys involved in weddings next summer, great deal for wedding parties. If you and the gang book your suits and get fitted by the end of November, you will all get 10% off your suits, and every member of the wedding party will get a free shirt, which could be a savings of up to $130. Do it now. F Apparel. Find out more or book that appointment online at fepapparel.com or pop down and see him in person at 190 Smith Street and tell him your boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. All right, Jets heading on the road. LA, Arizona, and the Vegas Golden Knights up with 3-4 Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. Let's look at the first 6 games of the season, and I head to the road trip with our pal Murat, who joins us now from The Athletic. What's going on?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. You know what? I was in such a good mood yesterday. I was buoyed by the performance of the team on Monday night, as was most people in the chat. I mean, there'd been some ups and downs, and, you had, I thought, a very reasoned take in your piece earlier this week in The Athletic post the game against the Maple Leafs. At 2-3, it's 5 games in. It's still very, very early. All that being said, that was a game where Toronto, I think, was clearly the better team, and it was a little bit disappointing. You add in all the visiting fans, and maybe there was some angst. I'm not sure there could have been a better way to quell angst amongst Jets Nation than a performance like the team put forth on home ice against St. Louis Monday.
Yeah, I mean, listen to Craig Berube after the game saying that St. Louis was run out of space. They were bad with the puck. They were forced into turnovers every time they wanted. The Jets were on them forcing something else, and they were bad with their puck management. And how nice it must have been for Jets fans to hear an opposing coach talk about those types of problems, which are what cost Winnipeg and, a lot of those stretches of those 3 losses that they've had so far, for Winnipeg to take it and go the other direction. And I got to say, Huss, every once in a while, the thrust of my piece, and I got into it with video and data and quotes and all of that sort of stuff, but the thrust was, this is pretty reasonable in terms of a start. They're not a great team yet, but this is improvement, and let me show you why. Sometimes you write that piece, and then they come out with a dog of a game the next time around, and you're feeling pretty bad about having had that perspective, but thankfully the dog was just for puck drop, and that was it. That was all.
Oh, what a great puck drop that was, too. It was good vibes in the building right from the get-go with that Toba Center puck drop with Duke, I believe it was, that charmed everyone in the building. And the thing that was so impressive about that game, Murat, was the way that the team continued to get better throughout the game. I mean, the first period, I don't think that they dominated by any stretch, but I mean, they certainly were easily on an even keel with St. Louis. And I thought Connor Hellebuck was his busiest, although he didn't have to make any 5-bell saves in that first period. But they got better through the second. And man, that third period, and this I think speaks to what Craig Berube had said. The Jets got better. They put more pucks on the net. I mean, they were relentless in trying to grow that lead to a 2-goal one. And man, Morgan Barron and Adam Lowry had 10 shots between each other. Barron was finally recorded. I mean, Scott Arniel talked about it being a blueprint overall for the way that they played, and I will agree with that. But we all know that these games are long, and it's difficult to execute perfectly for the full 60 minutes. But I thought that the way they handled playing with a lead in the situation that they did was maybe one of the best things that came out of that game, and something they can certainly lean on and build on going on to this tough road trip with 3-4.
Yeah, Huss, for me, so much of the evaluation right now is about process and how do they respond to different situations, including, that first period, which, wasn't necessarily a gold star first period. That PK, they were getting beat for seam passes one way or the other. Connor Hellebuck, I would actually argue, made some phenomenal saves early on in that game. But after Winnipeg picked up the lead, head into the third period, up 1-0 on what was a really very pretty Mark Scheifele goal in front. And then what you see is the opportunity for Winnipeg to take a step back. Like, it's been, I don't want to say a hallmark of bonus-led teams, but it's been a feature of bonus-led teams where when a team is leading, they sit back into a bit of a shell and you see the team get outshot. That was out the window under this new coaching staff, and on that night particularly led by Scott Arniel, where the Jets kept pushing. And it wasn't just the goals. It was the flow of play. It wasn't just the flow of play. It was the forecheck. And it wasn't just the forecheck. It was managing the puck well on the way up the ice as well to get into the offensive zone. So, like, I think Huss, for me, you know, they're teaching so much, right? They're teaching so much. And is this team going to be better? Well, we're sort of waiting and seeing and finding out. You know, they teach a new forecheck. And you can see it when we sit in our seat and look down. You can see the shape. They talk about better puck management, and it's sometimes this season we've seen it, and sometimes we haven't. But against St. Louis, I thought that a lot of those sort of concepts connected to each other, where Winnipeg wasn't blowing 3 consecutive exit attempts at the blue line, so you got to see the zone exit turn into a bit of offense, and the offense turn into a couple of different options. Lose the puck and then they're forechecking like gangbusters to try to get it back. I thought it was all, I guess, connected, to use a Jets phrase.
Yes, we remember that one from previous incarnations of the club. Well, I mean, and that does come down to, and I mean, puck management is a term that we use often, we throw it out, but when the Jets are off their game, their puck management really, really struggles. And we've seen that at times, you know, certainly against the Dallas Stars, at times against Toronto. And even in the first period of the game, I mean, it certainly wasn't perfect. And listen, I like those PKs. I mean, listen, you're in the National Hockey League. Teams are going to get opportunities. You want to limit them. But, you know, getting through, surviving those 2 penalty kills, I think was massive. And you mentioned that the saves that Connor Hellebuck made. But the way that they managed the puck, Murat, especially in the second and third period, was maybe the reason why we're talking about the blueprint. And, you know, not being a coach, watching games, seeing, you know when teams are going well, and you know when teams are struggling. And that is the overlying thing that can be problematic at times for the Winnipeg Jets. And it didn't happen on Monday. And, you know, I'm sure part of it is feeling comfort with the players you're playing with in this new system. But I'll tell you what, if they can make the decisions and the reads the way they did against a Blues team that traditionally doesn't give you a lot of time to make those decisions, they'll put themselves in a good position to have far better results than they had last season. And back to your point about the first 5 games and now first 6 games, I'm not sure about you, but you know, when I looked at the season, knowing what they were going through, never mind the unexpected loss of head coach Rick Bowness, you looked at that first 10 games with the team that they were playing, with where they were playing, with the way the schedule shook down. And I said, listen, if you can get out of this at 5-5, you'll be happy. Now, that only projects for 82 points. That's going to miss the playoffs by 13 or 14. But when you consider the way what this team was dealing with coming in, you know, I think they've sort of survived the first 6 and put them in a position to maybe be in a better spot. And then you get home with a little more regularity to the schedule, some home games and some games against teams. And you can't take anything for granted in the NHL. I know we've been looking at the standings. How does Chicago won 4 in a row? Those sort of things. But so far, pretty good, and an opportunity to make it even better than pretty good on this upcoming road trip.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, I remember getting texts right when the schedule came out saying, hey, you know, if the Jets survive the first month, they'll be okay. And, you know, you and I, we've talked about the Jets having so many different plans and, you know, new systems and all of that sort of stuff, and how everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Well, the schedule is a bit of a punch in the mouth for the Winnipeg Jets early on, and they've acquitted themselves really well. And that's why it's about process. And, you know, I keep going back to this puck management concept. And this is why I asked Connor Hellebuck about it after the St. Louis game. It's why I asked Scott Arniel about it as well, where Winnipeg has been a mostly improved team in all of the games. But there have been moments where they sort of shoot themselves in the foot a little bit, where they're trying to exit the zone and they make an east to west pass, or they don't make the right play at the blue line. And you saw them get burned really badly for that with like a 90-second shift against Colorado. And I think it was Lehkonen who finishes off the play where Connor tried to get out of the zone. Scheifele tried to get out of the zone. Josh Morrissey, all of that sort of stuff. It was an enormous shift. Well, then you talk to Connor Hellebuck about it, like I asked after the game the other night, and he says, well, yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, you manage the blue lines really well, and you reduce so many chances against. And Scott Arniel's facial expression when, I think my preamble to the question was something like, hey, you guys have looked very good when you've made it across the blue line safely. And, sometimes when it doesn't work out that way, it doesn't look as good. And his eyes were like, yeah, that's exactly it. That's a very simple, specific part of the game that if Winnipeg gets right, it can save itself so much grief. And the point that I've, really been trying to make over these first 5 and now 6 games is they're doing enough of the rest of the things right that all, it's hard, sure, but like all they have to do, in quotes, is manage that blue line better. And they're going to save themselves so many chances against and give themselves a fighting chance to, actually play in the right end of the rink like they were doing against St. Louis. And that's, I think, to manage it to 3-3, to show visual signs where the X's and O's look good a lot of the time. This is going to be a long season with a lot of growth in it. This is a good place for them to be in so far. I agree with that. I think this is a completely decent spot.
We'd spent a lot of time talking about the team taking care of business in their own end, and it's been better in some games than others. It was a full team effort for a full 60 minutes, and they were rewarded on the scoreboard with that 4-0 win against the St. Louis Blues. But I go back to Dylan Sandberg's insertion into the lineup for the Colorado game and the full shakeup amongst the pairings of the defense. And listen, I thought Sandberg played really well in that game, and we discussed on the program going in. It's a huge challenge playing your first game of the season against a team like Colorado at that position, but it was also a big opportunity that if you can pass that test, you put yourself in a pretty good spot. Well, he did all of that, but was unable to play. And Logan Stanley responded with certainly his best game of the season against the St. Louis Blues, along with many of his teammates. We've spent a lot of time talking about that third pairing, who's the sixth defenseman. For whatever reason, it takes up a lot of the oxygen amongst fan conversations on social media. But I'm interested in your thoughts, Murat, on the other two pairings, Dylan and Schmidt and Morrissey and Pionk, who are going to be eating up the lion's share of ice time and truly will be shouldering most of the burden on the Jet blue line. What have you thought about those, the ups and downs for both of those pairs since they were put together in the Colorado game last week?
I think you've seen exactly that, some ups and some downs with those guys. It's a tough spot in Winnipeg where there's no, peak Dustin Byfuglien, right? There's no outside of the Norris Trophy conversation type of defenseman on the Winnipeg Jets. And they have a lot of these guys where, Josh Morrissey completely comfortable on a top pairing. Neil Pionk, when he's on top of his game, looks effective in a top 4 role. And, I think my mom said this the other day, like, I like number 4 again. Things are going really well for him right now, especially on the offensive side of the game. I mean, he's shooting so well. He's jumping into plays. He's trying to spinoramas that he enjoys as much as he does. And I think an aggressive Neil Pionk is a particularly good thing. For me, I haven't seen those two take over games, the way that you might like from your two. I think they're the two highest paid defensemen. Make sure that I have that right. But I think that they've mostly been quality. Josh Morrissey, I think, is off to another strong start. It's that second pairing of Dylan and Schmidt where I think in each guy's case, I see them as a person or a player, pardon me, who, if the team is in good structure, if everyone is in their spots, these guys can contribute a lot. But I don't think that they're so dominant or so impactful that they're going to clean up the messes when everything else is going, haywire. And I think for their salary ranges in a top 4 role, you might like them to be able to take over games. I don't know that I've seen that, but I have seen moments, right? Nate Schmidt is looking like a more confident player with the puck. And when Main Street opened up for him, I think it was against Toronto down the middle.
Oh, my God. Listen, if that went in, first of all, we would have got to hear Mambo number 5 afterwards, which everyone would have had a good laugh about. But I thought that, I was actually going to bring that up to you. At times, it seems like Nate Schmidt has really bought in and is really enjoying the increased aggressive nature of what the coaching staff wants from his defense. And we have seen some flashes of some of the offense that, made him a very important member of Vegas and, before he ended up coming here. And that to me is in sharp contrast to a season last year where we didn't get a lot of that because frankly, they were too messed up in their own zone to be even giving themselves the opportunity for a player like that to try something.
Yeah, I mean, like Nate Schmidt in his mid-20s had rocket boots. There was the ability to jump up into the play and really control things, and certainly he had the green light in Vegas and Washington and all of that sort of stuff, depending on I'm thinking of Vegas, pardon me, where depending on the partner that he had. And I don't think he has those rocket boots at this stage of his career. But you know what he does have is that heads-up style of attacking play. And he reads the play in front of him really well. You can see that on the power play where he can look off one way past the other. You can see him when the C opens up for him, he'll attack that lane because he's a very heads-up offensive player. And I think with a little bit of a push, a little bit of a green light in that way, I mean, there's some fun to be had with Nate Schmidt attacking this year for sure. And then that's just about making sure if Brendan Dillon's his partner, that Dillon's got his back that entire time. And in theory, Huss, I think that's an ideal stylized match. And it's a matter of seeing if they can get the best out of them. Can they win those top 4 minutes that they're going to get? Because I think you get the most mileage out of that third pair if you shelter them quite a bit. You keep them away from the first and second lines of other teams.
Murat of The Athletic with us here in Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. A lot of talk coming out of the Toronto game going into Monday night about the top line, and in particular Kyle Connor, who had only had 1 goal on the season, still does only have 1 goal on the season, which was into an empty net in the home opener. What have you thought of Connor's game so far? And I really thought that he had his most complete game against the St. Louis Blues. And there's a lot of guys you could say that. I mean, it was a big part of everyone coming together and playing that way. But part of it was the way that they were able to match up, maintain puck control in the offensive zone against St. Louis, and then generate shots. And I said yesterday, I'm expecting Connor to get at least 3 on this road trip because the chances are coming. And you know, he's like a shark in the water that smells blood. But what have you thought about that line without Nikolai Ehlers, how Mason Appleton has added a very different component to it, and how impactful that was on Monday, because it really does seem his job is pretty simple. Get in there, get on the puck, get it, and get it to 55 and 81 and let them do what they do. And hey, if you're in front of the net to grab a rebound, you're probably in the right spot waiting for the puck to come towards the net.
Yeah, 100%. I don't worry about Kyle Connor's offense at all. At all. Gets the breakaway, gets his stick slashed, and it breaks. You know, he's been robbed a few different ways. He's hit iron a couple of times. And there's a sense when the puck comes off of Kyle Connor's stick that even if the goalie's getting a piece of it, Connor's putting it in a spot that's a little bit unexpected. Maybe it's against the grain of the goaltender's motion. Maybe he's almost got it through the armpit or just above the pad, kind of those, those unexpected holes, I guess I would say. I think that Connor is dangerous every time he has the puck and every time he shoots the puck. And over a long enough haul, I don't really worry about those offensive totals piling up. For me, my issue with Connor's game early has been his play at that blue line and the getting the puck out of the zone sort of situation where against Colorado, for example, he flies the zone and leaves Mark Scheifele to himself. Scheifele had an outlet half a second ago, isn't able to clear the zone. Or that one time where he gets his pocket picked on his way to try to cross the blue line by Devon Taves, I think it was. Same shift. And if Kyle Connor can manage the puck such that he's heading towards the offensive zone, I stop worrying right then and there. He's such a dangerous player. The offensive instincts are there. And no, I didn't predict a 93-point season again because those minutes are going to be managed better than they used to be, and he's not going to be playing 23 minutes a night or whatever else it is. But at the same time, you know, pound for pound, scoring chance for scoring chance, he's the most dangerous Winnipeg Jet there is, unless Mark Scheifele's on his game, which has also happened. So that's been nice.
Well, and Scheifele was on his game. I mean, he showed the incredible hands that he has in that very important first goal that ended up being the winner that gave them a little bit of a cushion that they deserved in the second period of the game. But I got to tell you, Murat, from where I was sitting in the building on Monday night, the thing that impressed me the most about that line was the grind that they had winning some of those puck battles that maybe traditionally hadn't gone their way against a very tough team to win those against, like St. Louis. But it was also some key back checks. I mean, these guys really have bought in so far. And That's why I think this game was so important, is because they did all those little things right. They were completely committed to it in both ends of the rink, and it showed in the overall play of the game. Like, it was the perfect example of, if you guys do this and follow the plan and everyone is in line, we can win hockey games and we can beat good teams like the St. Louis Blues. And Scheifele's back check on a couple of occasions was, let's call it what it is. This was something that was not seen very much recently, especially last year. And that difference, he's going to get his goals, but that commitment to the 200-foot game, as we like to say, this first line absolutely needs it. And that is going to be the difference, because we know they're going to get theirs. It's keeping them out of their own net when they're on the ice that I think is going to be the difference as to getting that plus-minus number up, which some people care about. But the bottom line is, you want to be on the positive side of the ledger. And the way that that line can do that is being more committed. And we've seen that so far through 6.
Yeah, it's been such a pleasant development, because you've heard these guys talk about it and then not necessarily demonstrate it in the past. There's been a couple of off seasons in a row where Mark Scheifele was talking about this sort of complete game, and hey, you don't get paid every time you go back check, but you do it every single time. You're gonna get rewarded eventually. And then you see the season that happens and the defense isn't necessarily there. Well, it has been there. It absolutely has been. And I don't expect those guys to have Ryan O'Reilly, Patrice Bergeron type defensive impacts. But if they can pull what they had in terms of an impact just to average, just to slightly below average, even from a defensive sort of perspective, they generate the offense. And all you need Winnipeg to do when Mark Scheifele is on the ice is to outscore the other team by as much as possible. And so far, that sort of that element of the back check, that element, even on, I keep pointing to the shift that was 90 seconds long or more against Colorado that leads to a goal against. Well, puck gets turned over, goes the wrong way, and you isolate on Mark Scheifele on that shift. He's digging in and stopping and hustling back into position. He's making his cuts, well into a shift that he should have been exhausted into the right directions. And I like that. Like, I like that. And I like your point too, where, the old forecheck, back check, paycheck. You like to see guys get paid off, rewarded for their investment into those sorts of things. And full credit to them so far. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's not as much glory in the great defensive play. I mean, it does end up on the highlights. You don't get the fans out of their seats, so you don't get to play your goal song, but it helps you win hockey games. And that is what it's about right now for the Winnipeg Jets. What have you thought of the bottom 6? And in particular, I'll ask you about Morgan Barron's role. Finally got rewarded with his first goal. I thought he's had some nice looks so far this season. It certainly is playing, and a game like that showed the physicality and the body type that he brings and how that can be beneficial. And early thoughts on Axel F., who has now been really stood out at times with the speed, chipping in on the penalty kill, and has had a few looks himself that could have easily gone on the net if it got on the right side of the iron.
You know what? Against St. Louis, I liked both of those players' games quite a lot. And I think in each case, for me, I felt like they took a little bit of time to get going. Morgan Barron had his abbreviated camp, right, with injury trouble, and he gets his spot back on that third line. And I think everybody believes he can, be a helpful player on the third or fourth line, depending on what the situation is. And I think you're starting to see him have that impact. I think the wheels are back. I think the assertiveness and the timing is kind of back, and you like to see him have an impact on the score sheet as well. That's just good stuff. And it's nice to see it against St. Louis too, because from the moment Mason Appleton got promoted to that first line, and there's been a kind of reshuffling, the third and fourth line's metrics hadn't been particularly good in that small sample of games. They were getting pushed around in their own zone, or leaning towards their own zone a little bit. That's changing. And with Axel Jonsson-Fjallby, I mean, he looks like a pain in the ass to play against in a great way. He has the speed to get in on the puck. He has the competitiveness to battle for the puck. He looks to be out of a play where, where he's forechecking and somebody looks to have a step on him. Well, no, he'll close that down and try to win it again and again. And I think that's what you want from that fourth line, especially, where you really trust them at this stage. I don't know if, all the fans feel the same way emotionally. I think with the fourth line, you just want to feel like it's not going to burn you, or, like with the goaltender, you want to feel confident, and vibes are king in a lot of those contexts. I think with that fourth line and that bottom six, they're developing a sense that you can trust them. And that fourth line definitely been phenomenal for its level of play on the depth chart. And then that third line has had games where, Lowry has really been able to take over shifts. And I also think that they've had games where they've been beaten pretty badly by their matchup. And it's nice to see them have had a lot of success against St. Louis, because that's what you want to keeping or going forward, pardon me.
Yeah, I mean, listen, living in the Central Division right now, I thought that was going to be a true test of a team, of something that they're going to see quite often. I didn't think they passed the test particularly well. Well, to be honest, they didn't pass it against the Dallas Stars earlier in the season. And to do that at home was, for those lines. And, we got to give credit to Scott Arniel. I mean, I know this is Rick Bowness's team, but Rick, of course, hasn't been on the bench for the majority of the season so far. And Arnie has not been afraid to throw out that Gustafsson line. I remember them going out to kind of quiet things down at 3-3 when Colorado was all over them, dominating that game in the comeback after they tied the game up. And we've seen them out in 1-goal games in the final 5 minutes. And let's face it, that just not would have happened before. And those players are rewarding Scott Arniel with the confidence that he's put in with some strong shifts and doing exactly what they put out there to do. One other thing that Rick Bowness talked to before, unfortunately, he sort of fell ill on Monday was special teams. And he was not sugarcoating anything. In the 20s in both PK and power play simply wasn't good enough. Certainly the penalty kill, along with some, Connor Hellebuck doing what he does so well, was a big part of the game to get them to that point. And then they got the power plays later on. What have you seen from the special teams, the good and the bad, and where's the focus on improvement for this team going into this road trip in your mind, Murat?
Yeah, for me, I'm still a little bit shy on the PK. I know they had a great night, but I think that they're going to give up, or they have given up, a fair share of high quality chances. And you look at the metrics in terms of, expected goals against, or just forget that, shots against per minute of the Jets being on the PK. And they're, a bottom 3 team, I think, in that regard. And I think one of the reasons why they give up so many shots and so many chances, they're actually pretty good at faceoffs, completely average PK faceoff team, but they let teams gain the zone for free a lot of the time. I don't think that the zone entry defense is particularly established right now in Winnipeg. I think that other teams are gaining Winnipeg's blue line for free and then getting to a position of being set up more often than you'd like. And then there have been moments where that puck's getting past defensemen or past people in the middle of the ice that you expect players to be able to get a stick on. And, there are a few examples in the first period against St. Louis where DeMello's getting beat by seam passes right by him, Logan Stanley as well, and you can kind of go down the list. I think that the quality of chance that the Jets PK gives up right now is still too high, and I think that's still a concern for me. On the power play, I think that there's room for improvement in speed and all of those sorts of things, but I also want to acknowledge that they are creating a fair bit of scoring chances, and I don't know how many times Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to have to hit the post before he's going to get paid off of a power play opportunity. I've liked a lot of what they've been able to put together on the power play, and I just sort of want to see more of it at this stage, to the point where that they do get rewarded. I wouldn't mind seeing a little more of that second unit from time to time too, just to see what they're capable of. And the personnel has been pretty nicely mixed up, but I get without Nikolai Ehlers, now you got Blake Wheeler up. You want to you feel like you have the overload talent on the first unit. Long-winded way of saying, Huss, I don't really stress the power play as much as the PK right now.
You just mentioned Blake Wheeler. Obviously, we spent a lot of time talking about the former captain throughout the season. There was the big announcement that he would no longer be the captain when training camp began. And, I think that, there was a lot of intrigue as to how Blake would handle it and how he'd be performing this year. Through a half dozen, what have you thought of 26 and his role right now on the Winnipeg Jets?
I think Blake Wheeler is slotted exactly where you want Blake Wheeler to be right now. I really like his start to the season. I know it's been quiet in terms of the counting stats, and I know that there's been some moments where, he seems to be trying to walk the puck into the net, but I like what he's been able to create with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Cole Perfetti. And I think that line, in terms of the chances that it's generating from the middle of the ice, you can count on them to produce a little bit more than they have so far already. I like Blake Wheeler's, like we were talking about Nate Schmidt earlier. Blake Wheeler, no, he doesn't round the corner on people like he used to in his prime of his career, but he's added this really heads-up element to his game where he can come down the middle of the ice and his head is up the whole way, and he can attack the middle of the ice almost more slowly now because he's reading exactly what the defenseman is giving or isn't giving. He's also winning his battles on the wall and working with Pierre-Luc Dubois to establish space. I know it's a slow offensive start in a lot of ways, but I like that line. And if you look beyond just the shot clock and all of that sort of stuff, and just the amount of times where they get the puck in the middle of the ice with dangerous opportunities, I like their odds of creating a lot of points. Just pass a few of those less, pass off a few of those opportunities a little bit less often, hit a couple less posts. That line's going to I think it's going to do just fine this season.
Murat, great stuff. Fill us in on what you've got cooking in the Athletic over the next few days on this road trip.
Yeah, we got an interesting package coming for the Arizona game. I think about the way the Winnipeg Jets fans must feel. If you grew up on the Jets and you were a mid-90s Jets fan and you saw this team go south and for financial reasons, and then you watched the NHL bend over backwards to accommodate this situation in Arizona, you might have some emotions about that, I think. And I think of all those fans, when Kyle Connor scores 93 points and they're still comparing it to Jets 1.0 records, like you don't even acknowledge the Atlanta Thrashers part of this franchise. I think that there's a lot of interesting feelings in Winnipeg right now about the situation in Arizona. And so we've got a package I'll be writing. We'll have Mark Lazarus on site as well, a national writer. We'll have, I think Mike Russo has some plans for it as well. And it's just going to be really interesting to cover an incredibly unique situation. I'm sure there's lots of good people working hard to make the best out of that situation. It's still not a good one. And I think that we're going to dig deep into that and see what we can find.
Murat, travel safe. We'll look forward to seeing you back in the Peg. Thanks so much for doing this as always.
Right on. Thank you.
Give him a follow on Twitter at WPG Murat and make sure you're subscribed to The Athletic for Murat's work covering the Winnipeg Jets and the National Hockey League. All right, we will talk Bombers in a few minutes after DB joins us. All the Bombers season award winners announced, and we will get to that before the end of the program, as well as some news on the British Columbia Lions starting quarterback for Friday's game. Of course, one more regular season game, and then the big one, the West Final on November 13th for the back-to-back Grey Cup champs. If you're going to the game, you know what to do. Get there a little early. Looks like the weather's going to be gorgeous for late October here in Winnipeg on Friday night. So get there early. Enjoy maybe a CC and ginger, $5 beers, as well as $3.50 hot dogs and pop outside the Princess Auto tailgate zone before the game. Princess Auto, proud sponsor of the Bombers and Winnipeg Sports Talk, and the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Check them out at one of two Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or you can shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Our friends at Culligan Water have been the water experts, family-owned business for over 65 years in Winnipeg, really covering everything you need in the water game for your house, your cottage, family, or your business. Culligan has it all: water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, drinking water systems, not to mention citywide water delivery services and commercial and industrial water products and solutions. The Culligan man's there for you, 1200 Sargent Avenue. You can give them a call at 204-694-5180 or check out all of their products and services available online at drinkculligan.com. And of course, I mentioned for you whiskey lovers, only 80 bottles of the Canadian Club Chronicles 45-year-old whiskey is going to be released next week into the market. It'll be done officially at the Manitoba Liquor and Lottery Spirits of Distinction Awards. And then, as I mentioned, only 80 bottles left available for the entire province. So if you've seen the award-winning Chronicles series over the last few years, We did a promo with them last year. This is the last chance. This is the last edition of the Chronicles series. And of course, nothing better than Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey, Canadian Club, especially a 45-year-old version. CC and Ginger, of course, also available in 6-packs at your local favorite beer store. And it'll be pouring at the IG Field on Friday night as the Bombers take on the British Columbia Lions. And stay tuned. Today or tomorrow, probably, we've got some Jim Beam social passes to give out from our friends at Canadian Club for the game on Friday night for the Bombers and the Lions. All right, we will talk a little Bombers before the end of the program right now with the team back at practice, ready to finish up the regular season. Right now, though, let's head down to SoCal, get ready for the Jets road trip, and see what's up with the Kings, who will be the host tomorrow night with our guy Dennis Bernstein from the fourth period. DB, are you in the Coyotes temporary dressing room right now? Where are you at?
No, I'm actually working. I was at Kings practice, El Segundo, California here. And I too will be going to Arizona from a curiosity standpoint. So absolutely looking forward to that. But yeah, we just finished practice here for the Kings and got to talk to Todd McClellan, Adrian Kempe, Brant Clark, and talking about a team that when you had thought if there was one team with defensive woes this season starting off, it wouldn't be Winnipeg, it would be LA, but it's just the opposite. LA's got to find a way to keep the puck out of the net. Great game last night against Tampa Bay, 4-1 victory, 4-2 victory actually. So, we're to start off the season in a very curious mode.
Yeah, it should be a real interesting matchup tomorrow night at Staples Center, just considering the recent performances. I mean, I caught some of the game last night. Nice win against one of the best teams in the league. Anytime you beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, you're doing something right. And on the Winnipeg side of things, there has been some ups and downs, but they are coming off their most complete 60-minute performance in a shutout of a division rival in the St. Louis Blues, DB. And it's going to set up a very interesting game tomorrow night between these two teams who are both basically right around 500, like basically about 20 of the 32 NHL teams through a half dozen.
Yeah, well, the Kings are still searching, or trying to, I think, maybe refine their identity from last season, because that was a low-event, defensive-minded team that only had a +3 goal differential last year, and they knew that coming into the season, you can't have a +3 goal differential. I think you're going to make the playoffs again. You're not going to sneak up on teams. They're going to get used to the system here in Los Angeles. So the impetus on this team was to be more offensive and be more aggressive. And I think they took it too much to heart in the first 7 games, Hustler, because they were playing 7-6, 5-4, 4-3 games, and it's not really what Tom McClellan wants. They want to be a tough team to play against, but be more defensive-minded. You saw it last night, but it also helps when your goaltender makes some saves, because to be frank, both John Quick and Cal Peterson, the first 7 games were not good. They had the lowest goals expected above average in the league coming into the Tampa Bay game last night, but a key 5-on-3 penalty kill, some opportunities to goal scoring from Adrian Kempe, and a guy who's been a revelation. And there's been a lot of talk about Gabe Vilardi here in Los Angeles since he's been drafted, and they've been waiting, and he has been gangbusters. He's been their best player so far this season.
Well, let's talk about Vilardi for a minute. There's a couple other players I wanted to ask you about first, but I mean, it's pretty hard not to start with him when you look at where the Kings are right now and the fact that he has 5 goals and 9 points and 8 assists right at the top. And man, they've been getting production from their centers. Vilardi, Kempe, Kopitar right at the top. But I mean, Vilardi was a guy, and you mentioned, like some first rounders, took a little longer to stick, spent a good portion of the time in the American League last year. What a start to the season. And I'm not sure that that's found money, but I would suggest that his production is maybe in excess of what could have reasonably been expected early on in the season.
Yeah, Hustler, it's found money if he's going to be on the third line producing at that rate, because their top 6 is set. Now, last night, he moved up to the second line because Victor Arvidsson was ill after taking warm-up. So that they graduated him up, and it doesn't matter. The way he's playing, he's a very confident player. And remember, he had back issues coming out of juniors. It really impeded his development here. And he just wasn't a confident player. And the other thing, look, coming out of juniors, I was the only guy here in LA to say this. He's a right winger. He's not a center. And they tried to make him a 2C. It just didn't work. He couldn't play at pace. So they put him on right wing in the hopes of, this time last year, he looked like a failed first round pick. And he went back, and something happened over the summer. He's a different person, not only a different player. His attitude is totally different right now. He's more aggressive. He's more confident. And he has And some people think he has the most skill of any prospect, and that includes Brant Clark and Quentin Byfield. So that's part of the issue as well. So, but he has been a revelation. If he's going to be able to get that production on the third line, this is going to be a dangerous team because Hustler, the really good teams have production on 3 lines, not just 2 in this NHL.
Dennis Bernstein in the fourth period joining us from Staples Center in LA, where there it is.
Dave Pagnotta too.
I know Dave's going to be there for the big party in Arizona coming up on Friday. What's up, Dave? But the two players, and you mentioned, I mean, this team won games by a razor thin margin last year. They basically were a push when it comes to goals for and against all season long. And they needed to get more offense as much as they want to have the defensive blueprint on their game. Kevin Fiala was the big offseason addition. How has he looked early on in the season? How has he fit in? And what has that done to the Kings' ability to score goals, DB?
I think at some point, Hustler, it'll be really a revelation. You just can't, and Todd has said this, Todd McClellan said, you can't just drop a player on the top line and think automatically he's going to produce. Now, he's put up points. He's a high-risk, high-reward type of player. And you heard the reputation coming in from Minnesota that he makes some dumb plays in his own zone and in the offensive zone. He takes some penalties like, wow, why are you taking a penalty 200 feet away? But this is a playmaker that they desperately needed on their top 6. He's going to be fine. He's worth the money. He's trying to find the real chemistry with Kopitar and Kempe right now. And you look, the numbers aren't bad, but I think he'll be a point-a-game player, an 80, 85-point player for this team that will absolutely need it. But again, if they can get them, and their best line, and it's been their best line. You talk about Kopitar and Kempe and Fiala. Their best line since January 1st of last year is the Danault line. Danault, Moore, and Robertson. They've been the best. They're still the best. Phil had a slow start, but he's scored 3 or 4 goals here in the last couple of games. So Fiala will earn his salary, but he's more a playmaker than just a goal scorer because he had 50-some-odd assists. That's what they need on this team. Another facilitator, another guy to facilitate the power play as well.
What about former number 2 overall pick Quentin Byfield? Got a chance to really get his feet wet in the National Hockey League. What's expected of him? What's his role right now, and what have you seen so far, Darren?
Those feet are still getting wet, Hustler. So it's the production is still not there. Now, they got a kid line going with him, Gabe Velarde on the right, and Arthur Kaliev on the left. That will be exciting if they all can produce because they're all, 2 guys are first-round picks. The other guy's a second-round pick in Kaliev. So he's still trying to find his way. He's been better. He's not been productive. But the saving grace for this team, because of their depth at center that you mentioned, with Kopitar and Danault, he doesn't have to be a 25-25 player this year. He needs to be better, more of an impact player. But if he gets, let's say, 17 and 22 or 17 and 23, if he's half a point a game player, that's going to work for this team. He didn't have to come to the forefront like Tim Stützle did, right? Who's always going to be compared to Quentin Byfield, right? So that's part of the issue, right? So I think that as the season lengthens and he gets more familiar with his line mates, it'll be better, but it's still a work in progress. But again, they're not rushing him because, again, they have that depth at center.
Who do you expect in net tomorrow night? And you sort of mentioned that it hadn't been great goaltending-wise for the Kings so far. I mean, is there a number 1 right now, or are they both getting opportunities to play, and it's time for someone to step up and claim that number 1 role on a consistent basis?
Well, no disrespect, but I think they have 2 1Bs right now. Neither guy has played well, but I wouldn't suspect that Quick goes back in net because Cal Peterson has not. Cal this season has played 10 good minutes in Nashville and a shootout, and to help them win that game. But other than that, again, I keep coming back to this word confident. He's just not a confident goaltender. And he's now at the pressure of having to earn $5 million a year, and he's not playing at a $5 million a year level. That's one of the big challenges with Cal Peterson. He's just not the same goalie that they thought he was when they gave him this contract. And again, he played last season still on his entry-level deal. I would suspect Jonathan Quick goes. He was better last night, but neither goalie has been good, but I'm not sure what's going on with Cal Peterson right now. Maybe he just needs a lot more talking to by Bill Ranford, who's the goaltender coach here. I think that would kind of solve things. But again, it's early in the season. He can bounce back, but I would suspect that Quick goes back because he didn't win last night against Tampa Bay.
Hey, I want to ask you about Zona and the opening and Friday and everything happening around that team. But just before we go, one player that a lot of folks might not remember or not realize was even up with the club was 2021 first-rounder, 8th overall Brant Clark. He's now played 7 games. A big decision is going to need to be made whether he stays past the 9th game and has the contract year count. Tell us about the player, how he's looked so far, and does he stay the season with the Los Angeles Kings, or is he going to get another game or two and then head back to the Barrie Colts?
Well, first of all, I love this kid. He's got personality plus. He is wonderful to talk to. He's just so precocious. And I went to their first preseason games, Kings in San Jose, and I sat in the first row behind the bench, which is the worst, obviously, seat to sit in. But you saw Clark take coaching from Tom McClellan and Jim Hiller and Yanni as well. And he's like a sponge. He's like so focused on wanting to be here, wanting to great. Hustler, I think decision's already been made. This kid has a dimension to him that they don't have on this team, and that's what Drew Doughty. Drew Doughty's, he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but this is an exciting kid that plays with patience and vision way beyond his years, and they're doing it right. He's not playing a lot of minutes. He's on the third pair, but I think the decision's already been made. He's going to stay here. He's going to be a star. He can be something special here. He's that good, and he's a great kid. I guess he doesn't know that he's at the NHL yet. And I asked him about that, like, hey, one night it's Sid Crosby. The next night you're going up against Ovechkin. Last night it was Steven Stamkos and Kucherov. He goes, yeah, during the warm-ups, I might look down and say, wow, that is Sid Crosby warming up. But once the game starts, it's game on. So he's been great for this team. He may wind up being their best pick, even over a Byfield, because he just adds this dimension. He's got that it factor. You could see it. And last night he made a great play. He showed patience. He showed vision. Fed Blake Lazar for wound up being the game-winning goal. So Winnipeg fans should watch this kid. He won't be on the ice for 22 minutes yet, but when he is, it'll be exciting for fans.
DB, the Jets finish up at Staples Center, and you'll be following them to the desert for the first game for the Coyotes in Tempe at the ASU Arena. What do you make of this situation? I mean, how are we here? Is this tenable long term? And what are you hearing around the team, players? I know they haven't been there yet. We were just showing a video of what looks to be a temporary dressing room for the Winnipeg Jets tomorrow, which let's just say is not quite up to snuff for NHL standards. I'm just interested in your perspective on how we got here and what this means for the team, the players on that Arizona squad, and obviously this season as they try to keep their head above water for multiple seasons in what is essentially a junior hockey rink.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's what it is, right? 4,500. Look, when they announced opening night, I'm like, I got to be there. I'm so fascinated with respect to the game night experience there that it's going to be. And what I've heard is the first time the Coyotes have touched the ice is during warmups. So they haven't had the opportunity to practice on the rink. So it's going to be so. Look, Gary Bettman was here opening night in LA. And I asked Gary, I said, are you going to go to opening night in Arizona? He goes, no, it's a temporary home. It's a means towards an end. And that's what this is. Here's how we got there. Okay, they built the arena in Glendale on the wrong side of town. All the money's in Tempe and Scottsdale. So for season ticket holders that have the money, that want to buy season tickets, and I've done that drive. It's a 45-minute drive with no traffic across the valley in Phoenix. Like, it was in the wrong place. And I love Glendale. I love Westgate. It's a great facility. It's in the wrong place. The other issue is that the owner of the Phoenix Suns can't stand the Coyotes. So the option of going downtown and playing in the Suns Arena, he wouldn't let him in the building. So what's your next option? If you're going to stay in the market, you're going to go to Arizona State and play. And that's the thing, Hustler. They have dug their heels in so deep in Arizona. Why are they going to move now? They owned the team for 10 years, the league. So I don't see this changing, right? So why is it going to change now? The only way it changes is if the deal falls apart for this arena in Tempe. And Tillman Fertitta in Houston wants another tenant for his building in Houston, then I can see them moving. But other than that, get used to it. I don't have a problem. I know people are going to make fun of it and say it's not major league. It's a means towards an end, because I remember when the Carolina Hurricanes moved from Hartford and they played in Greensboro, and the players had to drive an hour to get to the games, and they roped up and they curtained off the top part of the arena. This is not the first time. This is not unusual when there's a relocation, and this is a relocation in the market. I don't have a problem with it. And if you have a problem with it in Winnipeg or Ottawa, who cares if you have a problem with it? It's like that. I'll give you an example. It's like when they announced Dustin Brown is going to have a statue in Los Angeles, and people like in Boston and New York are like, like, what do you care? It's not like if the Coyotes fans are going to have a great game night experience, the season ticket holders there for a couple of seasons, and they make the best of it, then fine. Like, yeah, are the facilities going to be top notch for the visiting teams? Of course they won't, right? And they're trying to do this on the fly, so I get it, understand it, but just a matter of just the NHL will not quit on Phoenix and the Arizona market. Is
it just that good of a market, or is it that they are just, it's sort of like a poker game? You're pot committed. You've already put so much in.
Yeah.
You can't fold now.
I think it's both, Hustle. But again, it's the seventh largest media market in the United States. And you now have ESPN and TNT and TBS. So now you're going to stay there. So, and there's not another option. There's not another great option. You're not going to, they play these neutral site games. You're not moving to Kansas City or Salt Lake City, where the Kings played a preseason game. So I have no problem with it. Hopefully these owners are committed. The issue is the building. And if they can't get this deal done with Tempe, then I think then you have to wave the white flag and say, we've got to look at other options. I don't think Quebec will be an option, but there's probably other cities around North America that could be an option.
I would love if KC was an option. I mean, they do have that great sprint center right downtown. It would be a very nice run. They'd fit in perfectly in the Central Division. We could maybe hit a Chiefs game on the weekend as well. But yeah,
the golf isn't as good. That's the problem. And here's the other problem is that the golf's so great in Arizona. Everybody comes in, plays golf. Bill Kessel comes in back from Vegas. He plays some golf. So that's the other issue. It's a great market. And not only that, it's also, and I know this is like stretching here a little bit, but the specter of Austin Matthews coming back home to Arizona. So maybe in 2 years, if he doesn't go back to Arizona, then maybe they wave the white flag there. But it's a big market. And you're right. They've been so pot committed to this market. I don't see them, like, why now? Like, hey, the deal falls apart from the building. Yeah, I get it. But in the moment, they're just going to bite their tongue, move on, and try to make the best of it.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Dennis Bernstein with us. Hey, you mentioned Phil Kessel. We got to quickly mention Phil. I mean, if there's a more unlikely NHL Iron Man, I don't know if you could pick a different guy, but I mean, what a run he's had, what a career, and seemingly fit in and really enjoying himself with the Vegas Golden Knights team that we're seeing a few more smiles this year than certainly they had in that very tough season last season.
Yeah, I guess you don't have to be that big, physically imposing, weightlifting type of player to play, almost 1,000 games.
Don't even need to drink water. Apparently, he hates water.
He hates water, exactly. All the things you're not supposed to do to have a long career in the NHL, he's done. Because he's a hockey savant, and he's a great player. I know guys that have been Phil's team. Everybody loves Phil Kessel. He's won Stanley Cups. It's just a great testament to a player who's, look, he's not a Hall of Famer, right? But just a tribute to a player in this league to go 990 games, not be sick, not have COVID, not get some sort of injury that keeps you out of the game. It's not a major record, but to me, it's a massive accomplishment what this kid has done to play 990 games in this league and get 400 goals, even though they called back one the other night and they were having a celebration in Vegas about it.
Hey, Dennis, this has been awesome. Thanks for doing this. Enjoy the game tomorrow night and enjoy the trip out to Arizona to see we get a good look at the Winnipeg Jets. I'll be looking forward to seeing what you think of the club because they've had some ups and downs, but coming off their best performance of the season right now. And unfortunately, no Rick Bowness. He'll be staying with the club here in Winnipeg for the next few days as he continues to recover from COVID-19. It should be a couple good ones, late ones for us right here, but we'll look forward to watching it. And of course, we'll check out what you and the boys have cooking at the fourth period over the next few days and consistently throughout the season. Let's do this again soon. Enjoy watching our squad for the next couple nights.
Well, it's a pleasure being on WST, Hustler. Thanks for the time. We'll talk to you soon.
There it is. Our guy, Dennis Bernstein. Make sure you check out thefourthperiod.com, folks, and check out Dennis on Twitter as well at Dennis Bernstein, TFP. We got to talk Bombers. Season-ending awards are out as the team gets ready for Friday. But before we do that, a big cheers to our friends over at Little Brown Jug. I was mentioning how nice the weather looks for about the next 5 days through the weekend. I know they had put some fire pits out in the patio, but we might not need those. Hey, if you're looking for a great spot downtown to go for Winnipeg's favorite local beer, 1919, and all the great Little Brown Jug offerings, still got a few more days to do that before it gets cold. And that is on William Avenue downtown. Of course, the brewery and tap room there open all year round. And the patio, which hosted us for our great Winnipeg Sports Talk Trivia Night, there for you as well. You can pick up the great taste at Little Brown Jug at your favorite local beer store as well if you can't make it downtown. Or save yourself the trouble of going anywhere and order online at littlebrownjug.ca. Big night tomorrow for sports fans. We got a great Thursday nighter. Well, great might be stretching it, but a very interesting one considering the couple duds that we've had as of late. Tom Brady and the struggling Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. That game will get underway at just around 7:15. And then 9:30, we drop the puck at Staples for the Winnipeg Jets and LA Kings. No better place to set up shop with your friends than Boston Pizza. Great promos and specials during Winnipeg Jet games, including you can win a VIP experience for 4 at an upcoming Jets game. And then stick around for the football as well. You'll be able to enter to win the second of 2 trips to Las Vegas to see the Raiders and the San Francisco 49ers in what could be a huge game on New Year's Eve weekend, as well as the Golden Knights and Blues on New Year's Eve. Watch the Jets and watch the NFL and enter to win at any local Boston Pizza, and check out that new fall menu, including the very delicious carbonara pizza. And just, hey, before we get to the Bombers, got to give a big shout out to our friends Nick and Nikki. Of course, the Nick and Nikki DQ, great sponsors of ours with 4 locations in Winnipeg and Southern Manitoba: DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, DQ St. Anne's, and DQ Niverville. And looks like the family's expanding, because I hear that Nick and Nikki are opening up a pita pit out in Niverville. Very fast-growing community. I know Nick's very involved with the Niverville Nighthawks, who are playing their first season in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League. But we all love supporting our sponsors. Maybe the most enjoyable is to support the Nick and Nikki DQ. Pop by one of their 4 locations, grab yourself a Blizzard, grab a Stack Burger, and hey, if you do have a party or an event coming up where a DQ ice cream cake might add to the fun, you can always hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba. Get a custom order done as you like it for a quick and easy pickup at any of the 4 Nick and Nikki DQs. All right, we'll get to the Coolbet lines. Quiet night in the National Hockey League with only 3 games, but we got to get to these Bomber Player Awards. But let's get Remis back in here. And Remo, I'm looking forward to these next couple games. Back-to-back late games, Thursday and Friday, heading into the weekend. Perfect timing on Friday, because can actually get in most of the Bomber game, at least while the starters are in, and then dive into the Jet game. But it was nice having DB down there, Murat as well. And I know Ken's going to join us on Friday from Arizona, as he'll have boots on the ground getting ready for that Coyotes home opener.
The historic Coyotes home opener at Mullet Arena. And yes, today's internet video of the day, the viral video, is the picture of what will be the visiting team dressing room and training facility. Flash it up there at the end of Murat's segment. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. I can't believe that's an NHL dressing room. Getting the jokes and the comments are flying in. They're going to try to make this arena work in Tempe. As you said, pod committed. I don't know. It seems like Houston, to me, would be a good place to go. But, oh well. We'll see what happens here.
No doubt about it. All right, let's get to the Bombers. The team announced their most outstanding player award winners, and no surprise at all that quarterback Zach Collaros is the Bombers nominee for most outstanding player. What a season Zach's had, completing 70% of his passes, or 69.8 to be exact, 4,115 yards, 35 touchdowns on the season, and a 114.6 efficiency rating. He is the guy that drives the bus for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and will be the favorite to win another CFL MOP award. Moving on to the defensive side of the football, and Remo, this was maybe one of the most interesting discussions we had last year talking about the Bombers, is who the heck you gave the defensive nod to. Last year it was Adam Bighill, and it really did come down to Adam Bighill, Willie Jefferson, and Jackson Jeffcoat as well. Jeffcoat has missed a number of games, so he was sort of out of the mix. Bighill's had another big season, but no doubt that Steamin' Willie himself, the land shark, the Bombers nominee for Defensive Player of the Year.
I gotta say, I don't like how they do this in the CFL, where you have to do the team awards, and the winner of the team awards goes to the finalist for the league awards. I don't know. I think Dalton Schoen could be most outstanding player. I guess if he doesn't beat Claros, how could he be in the league? But I don't know. Like, is Nathan Rourke actually going to win us? Because if he's the guy from BC, he played 10 games. Played 10 games. He shouldn't. It would be crazy to me if he won over Schoen.
If Nathan Rourke wins, it'll be A, a joke, and it'll be B, Bomber fatigue. And, that often happens when you have one team that's dominating a league and the rest of their competition for a number of years. People get tired of it. And listen, I love Nathan Rourke. I'm pumped that he's back. It's great for the Canadian Football League. I can't wait to see him and see how he looks on Friday night. And I'm sort of hoping that they get the job done in Calgary and we see Winnipeg and BC playing at their best on November 13th. But, I mean, to put Nathan Rourke ahead of Zach Collaros based on the seasons that they've had and how much time they missed would be absolutely insane.
Well, I think Schoen's a better candidate than Rourke. So why not have those guys go head-to-head? What, you have to have it's the participation trophy. Every team's got to have a finals. You can't have two finalists.
Let's not forget the East. The East does exist. The East does exist.
There's no good players in the East. What is it? JV division, right?
Yeah, that is the JV so far this year. No doubt about the Rookie of the Year, and we can basically start etching Dalton Schoen's name on the Rookie of the Year for the Canadian Football League. He will guaranteed be the Western nominee for the most outstanding rookie, and he will win the award at Grey Cup week in Regina. Dalton Schoen, let's just quickly hit his numbers for a minute. He has 68 receptions for 1,357 yards. He's averaging 20 yards a catch, and he's got 15 touchdowns on the season. An absolutely brilliant season. And it just goes to show how much he has been relied on and how consistent he's been. I mean, he's got over 550 yards more than Nick Dembski, who's had a great season himself, who is also, he did miss a couple games earlier this year, but is also the Winnipeg Blue Bombers nominee for most outstanding Canadian for the second time, for the second consecutive time. And no doubt about it, future surefire Hall of Famer Stanley Bryant, once again, the club's most outstanding offensive lineman. I mean, this one, we take him for granted, Remo. We talk so much about the most outstanding player and Zach and Willie and Big Hill. Stanley Bryant remains one of the most impactful signings in the history of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. He'll be up on the Wall of Fame. He'll, and most importantly, he'll be protecting Zach Collaros when either the Stamps or the BC Lions come to Winnipeg. Wouldn't it all be surprised if he gets a fourth award when the awards are given out for the entire league coming up Grey Cup week?
Yeah, he's been incredible since being signed, and that was kind of the start of the Bombers' turnaround. You know, you had to protect the quarterback with the offensive line, and that's kept Zach Collaros healthy and led him to MOP caliber seasons. So Stanley Bryant, he kind of just goes out and does his thing. And wow, 4 Offensive Lineman of the Year trophies would be pretty incredible accomplishment for him.
No doubt about it. And one more award to announce. Usually it's Mike Miller. He's missed some time. So Janarian Grant, the return specialist, gets the nod for the Bombers' most outstanding special teams player. We'll hear the finalists for each division coming up a little later on as we head into the playoffs. And of course, we'll find out the winners Grey Cup week in Regina heading into the championship game on the 20th.
Yeah, speaking of the Grey Cup, I was going to say, who's the halftime show?
I was just about to say, but the biggest story right now in the Canadian Football League, certainly not on any of these meaningless matchups for the final week of the season, outside, of course, the return of Nathan Rourke. But yeah, what are you hearing, Reem? I know you've been doing a lot of refreshing. Thought it might be Nickelback. Thought it might be the surprise return of Nickelback, who I think have a new album. But that is not happening. And it is, I will say this, it is very, very late in the game to not know who the halftime show is. I'll be honest, I could care less, but a lot of people do apparently.
Well, I want to know who it is. What are you talking about? I care. Don't you want to know who's going to be in the booth in the fourth quarter during a key moment of the game being interviewed by Glenn Suter and Rod Smith or whoever the play-by-play is? Don't you want to know who?
Keith Urban. How much does Glenn Suter love Keith Urban?
It was him. It wasn't the guy from the Arkells. Like, it was a pretty key moment in the game.
Tell us about the new album.
Yeah. And while the Bombers are making it was like big comeback last year. Like, they had overtime. It's like, oh, how about that performance? But I did get trolled by CFL on Reddit on Twitter, CFL_Reddit. They trolled me. They put out this graphic. It looked legit, Huss. Just announced the Wiggles will be rocking out at the Twisted Tea halftime show. This was so, if you're on the podcast, like, this tweet was so legit looking. This graphic is so well done.
They did a great job of this.
I thought this was real. I'm like, oh, I can tell Evan. He's going to love it.
Full links to the Grey Cup Festival, to Ticketmaster.ca, the whole thing.
They have the logos, like the watermelon background, but this is fake. It is not, of course, not the Wiggles. And if you don't know who they are, you probably don't have kids. They're sing kid songs. But I thought people are making jokes now. Like, who is the halftime show? Like, if you want to book someone, I think you got to do it in advance. The Grey Cup's less than a month away. Like, how do you not have a halftime show? Or are they just not announcing it and there is one?
Maybe they're going a different route this year and not focusing on a big money halftime performer. Maybe they're going to do something to maybe get like Darcy Oak or something out there to do some magic tricks or some.
That would be pretty sick, actually.
Different. I would be here for it.
That's
really
way
cool
better
to see him do his thing at the Jet game a little while ago. Anyways, big story though coming into the weekend. It's a Bombers Lions Friday night, CFL triple header on Friday. But we will see Nathan Rourke back, and I think anyone that loves the 3-down game and loves the Canadian Football League knows what an incredible jolt of energy he gave the Lions in the entire league when he came in. Very unfortunate that he missed the last half of the season recovering from this Lisfranc injury, but it sounded like he's good to go. We want the best competition for the Blue Bombers on the 13th of November, and we certainly have a much better chance of doing that. Listen, if Calgary can beat BC with Nathan Rourke, full marks to them. But Rourke's a pretty special player, and it would be great to see him on the big stage in the playoffs. Not the biggest game, though, because that would mean coming here through Winnipeg.
I was going to say, Nathan Rourke scares me as if he is fully healthy. We'll have to see how he is, but I think the Bombers are taking this one. They're preparing right, and I don't know if you saw this tweet from Scott Billick. They're blasting Limp Bizkit and Korn in the weight room. So Bombers, check mark. You can just mark them down for a win. Scott Billick doing some Big J journal work here, saying Mike O'Shea likes Limp Bizkit and Korn. Doesn't like candy corn. Dalton Schoen, I put his age up before. I think he's 25. 20, what does it say here? 26.
Not familiar with Fred Durst and his incredible musical catalog?
No idea about Limp Bizkit. Nick Dembski is aware. Won't find it in his place. Nick Dembski's a bit older. But, you watch the Woodstock 99 documentary. It's on Netflix. Pretty high-quality bands back in, late 90s, early 2000s. So, Bombers by 1 million points now that they're working out to Limp Bizkit and Korn. I'm in.
And by the way, they did have a funny video yesterday that the Bombers put out on social media, interviewing the players on their favorite Halloween candies. Mm-hmm. And the big boys on the defensive line had a big argument between Willie Jefferson and Jackson Jeffcoat. Jeffcoat, a huge advocate for candy corn.
What? No one likes
Willie
candy
Jefferson.
corn.
Well, Jackson Jeffcoat loves it. He claimed that it's a delicacy in Texas and was shocked that Willie wasn't down with it. Willie said he was crazy. So go back and check that out. Definitely the most popular Halloween candy. You're already into the Halloween candy.
What do you think I've been doing here? It's
the Reese's Cups, Reese Cups.
I got my M&M wrapper, and here's a Mars wrapper. I had a little mini Mars bar here too. So I've got to stay fueled up during the show.
Nicely done. We'll do our top 5 Halloween candies coming up on Friday's show as we get ready for the weekend. Bombers and Lions. And of course, Friday will be a really busy show. We'll have Ken in Arizona. We'll be able to talk about what happened against the LA Kings and then find out more about the opening of the Mullet Arena as an NHL building coming up. But let's get to the historic home opener for the Arizona Coyotes. Let's get to the Coolbet lines for tonight. Just quickly for the CFL, Dusty and I ran through it earlier today with our picks on the lock shop. You might want to just stay away from this week. Very difficult to predict what's going to happen with nothing really on the table. Excuse me, for any of these teams. Bombers were 4-point favorites. It's now 3.5. I wouldn't be surprised if that number comes down as we get closer to game time with Nathan Rourke back in. Argos, Swag Kelly getting his first start in the Canadian Football League. McLeod Bethel Thompson will be the third stringer for the game. That means nothing for the Argos before they host the Owls next week. Argos 3-point favorites at home. Ottawa Red Blacks, 1 point home dogs. Caleb Evans, is going to get the start for Ottawa. Hopefully they can get a win for Bobby Dyson, those suffering fans, in the final game of the season. And the end of an era in Saskatchewan, the final game before Cody Fajardo goes to free agency, and I'm not sure he's going to play. It looks like Mason Fine again. Riders 5-point underdogs against the Stamps, who will just be looking to stay healthy before they host the BC Lions the following week, go to BC for the following week for the West semifinal. As far as the NHL goes tonight, only 3 games. Rangers, Islanders. Rangers lost a tough one in extra time. I believe a shootout last night to the Avalanche. They're plus 109 against their crosstown rivals, the New York Islanders, who are paying minus 128. I'm looking forward to this Oilers-Blues game, though. Oilers were shut out by St. Louis 2-0 on the weekend, and it's sort of a sleepy afternoon game. Of course, the Blues came here and got shut out by the Jets on Monday. So what will we see from these teams? I guess we'll find out tonight. Very close to a pick'em. Oilers minus 112, St. Louis minus 104. And then the final game of the night, Tampa minus 147 on the road at the Ducks. I know they played last night. I know there was, not really any travel really going from the Kings to the Ducks. But I have a feeling that might be an ornery Lightning team that come in at 3-4 on the season. I'm actually jumping on an Oilers Lightning parlay tonight at plus 218. Hey, if you haven't used the promo code, or if you haven't bet at Coolbet before, use the promo code WST on your first deposit. You get a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. Any feels tonight on these games, Reem?
I was filling out my DraftKings card, and I had no idea what to do. I was like, well, I'm just going to pick McDavid's line. I'll just do that.
When in doubt, ride
Like,
McDavid. He's not getting shut out twice by this team.
Yeah, it's a good rule. So he's actually lining up with Hyman and Nugent Hopkins on the top line. Last game, it was Draisaitl with them, and they had some success, but then they swapped it around and put McDavid with them. Yeah, these are weird games. I've seen some of the guys like Andy McNeil who've had on. He's like, yeah, I'm kind of staying away from tonight. Not really sure what to do. A lot of games tomorrow, but I would go with I agree with you. Oilers Lightning.
Hey, I'm just checking the chat. Just back to our CFL Grey Cup halftime show discussion. Blair throws in Took for halftime show.
I was like, yes.
I co-sign that. I endorse it 100%. It wouldn't cost them. It wouldn't cost them what it would get for one of those massive acts, and they would just play bangers for the entire halftime show. Everyone would love it. Canadian guys. It would honestly be perfect for the Grey Cup, to be perfectly frank.
This is how the CFL would sell it. It's a celebration of Canadian rock music, and it's Took playing all the hits, as you said, bangers, great musicians. If they don't have anything, and I think you could call them and sell it as that. And
I wouldn't be surprised if they are potentially playing in and around Grey Cup in Regina.
Oh, for sure.
They're coming here, and actually, maybe we'll have to get Fitz back on, check in with him, because they are playing. And this is just off the top of my head, but early November.
Oh, November 4th.
November 4th. Okay, so that's next Friday.
That is next Friday.
And it's perfect, right in between the Habs game and the afternoon game on the 5th against the Chicago Blackhawks. So you Jet fans that go to games will be able to go check that out. Big endorsement. Maybe we'll do something on the show for some tickets for Took or something like that.
Not a lot of tickets available.
No, definitely not. No, that'll be full. I mean, they've got a big following right now, and it's guaranteed good time. And of course, Fitz, big sports guy, Winnipeg dude, came on the show earlier, had a heck of a lot of fun with him. Took is a no-brainer. T. Conopoli's down with it. I knew he would be. Well, anyways, that's pretty much it. By the way, I just see Stadium Series tickets are going on sale Thursday.
I want to quiz you on this. I didn't put it in the teams in the notes, so I was like, the NHL.com, it said, Stadium Series tickets Thursday. Did you know there was a Stadium Series game, and do you know where it is and who's playing in it?
Okay, I did know that they were doing something.
Yeah.
I believe it is at Fenway Park.
That's the Winter Classic. That was my next question.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the winner.
So no, I didn't know about the Stadium Series then, I guess. I thought they were the same thing.
I think I remembered hearing this. It's Carolina. They were finally got their outdoor game hosting Washington. Now, do you know who's in the Winter Classic? It's actually on January 2nd this year.
Where's Carolina playing that game? At the Panthers Stadium in Charlotte?
Let me double check. I didn't get that far. I was just like, these outdoor games used to be like such a big deal. You know about them, you care. Now it's kind of just like a regional thing. It's at
they're big in those. And who
it's
knows?
Navy Federal Credit Union. Oh no, that's the sponsor. That's not where it is. No, Navy. I don't know where it is. Carter Finley Stadium in Raleigh.
Okay, so it is in Raleigh, so it's not in Charlotte. So that'll be like NC State, I think. NC State's football stadium?
Yes, NC State. That's accurate.
Okay, nicely
and
done
then
for me for knowing that.
And the Winter Classic, January 2nd, because January 1st.
It's got to be Boston if they're in it.
You know their opponent?
Philly?
Close. Pittsburgh. They're like, we've done this Winter Classic for 20 years. We'll just go to tried and true. Sidney Crosby versus Boston.
Get Sid on there. And you know what? Hey, we've only got so many more years of Sid. Now, would it be cooler maybe if you were going to have like McDavid or something like that? I would have been up for that as well, but nothing wrong with that. And Penguins fans travel. They realize these are few more opportunities to be involved in big events like this with Sidney Crosby there. So good stuff on this. And by the way, finish this out. Very ominous tweet by the People's Insider yesterday, Remo. Keep an eye on Barry Trotz and Rick Tocchet. I'm glad that the Jets have their coach and we don't need to go through Trotz Watch 2.0. But it was interesting that Barry said that he would be open or would like the idea of coaching an original 6 team at one point. And listen, most of the original 6 teams already have coaches. Chicago's not changing anytime soon. But there is one guy that could be on the hot seat at some point in the center of the universe. And wouldn't that be something if that's where Barry Trotz ended up, trying to finally be the guy that, never mind, takes the Maple Leafs over the top to a cup, but just can get this team out of the first round for the first time in forever.
Yeah, they got off to a slow start, Toronto. They're having trouble scoring. Their bottom 6 isn't as good as last year. Could they make a change? I don't know. Is Vancouver going to make a change? They're not an original 6 team. One team, they won last night, but had a couple rough. Oh, sorry. Yeah, they did win last night. New Jersey. I know a lot of New Jersey fans there. They were chanting Fire Lindy Ruff.
Jersey, pretty sure they're not an original 6 team.
No, not an original. I'm just saying teams. I'm just saying teams. Yeah. I'm just saying teams. I don't know. Like, I think all the original 6 teams, except for maybe Toronto, are locked up, right? Montreal's not going anywhere. Boston.
If Barry goes to the Leafs, it goes from us offering him free beers for life from Little Brown Jug to being banned from drinking Little Brown Jug. We kid. Listen, NHL's better with Barry Trotz in it. It didn't happen for the Winnipeg Jets, but as they say, pretty encouraged by what we've seen so far from this club, and certainly looking forward to these next couple games on the road out on the West Coast. Tomorrow night, 9:30 start, Jets, LA Kings, and then coming up against the Arizona Coyotes on Friday, and then a 7 o'clock start in Vegas on Sunday. That's going to do it for us, folks. Thanks so much for being with us. Tell a friend about Winnipeg Sports Talk. Make sure you subscribe to both the audio podcast and the YouTube channel. Search Winnipeg Sports Talk, and we'll be doing it again tomorrow on the program. It's going to be fun. Brandon Rowicki's going to join us for his weekly visit. Scott Billick as well, kind of hit both Bombers and Jets. Captain of the Winnipeg Ice, Carson Lambos, on the show tomorrow as well, as we get ready for the Ice home opener coming up on the weekend. Ice 11-1 after starting their first 12 games on the road. It's all coming up tomorrow. In the meantime, have yourself a great night. Don't forget to vote if you haven't already, and we'll catch you tomorrow right here, 1 p.m. live on YouTube on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Have a great one.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.